Looking in front of him, Ling Chen started to feel a bit hesitant. For such a dangerous region, should he charge in? Or should he charge in? Or maybe he should charge in. After a while, Ling Chen's eyebrows nodded in resolution as he decided to charge in. He deeply breathed in as he lifted his foot, preparing to enter the Fairyland mountain range region. Suddenly, a loud gust of wind traveled over to him, and a person's figure appeared in front of him. A wrinkled, old face appeared in front of him and stared at him. "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" The two of them stared at each other and asked the same thing at the same time. Under the heavens, there was no other person who could travel at such an astonishing speed. Standing in front of Ling Chen was evidently Xiao. Xiao was still wearing tattered clothing. Ever since he had escaped from the lunar sky hell a few months ago with Ling Chen, he didn't seem to have changed his clothes. His eyes became wide and round as he stared at Ling Chen, as if he had seen a ghost. Ling Chen's expression was about the same. "What the hell, why would I meet this guy here? This old man's everywhere. I heard you took the cherry blossom god representative." The two of them stared at each other for half a second before Xiao suddenly asked this. Ling Chen was quite surprised, and asked, "How did you know?" "Fudge. It really was you." Xiao jumped a meter into the air before wildly laughing, "Ha ha ha ha. No less than expected from my Fengchen Sect successor, that's way too cool. You actually turned a high-level moon god representative into your pet, wahahaha. Apart from my Fengchen Sect successor, who else can do this, hahaha." Xiao was laughing his head off, and his incredibly dirty and messy hair and beard seemed like they were going to be thrashed off. Ling Chen was still feeling quite confused, and once again asked, "You still haven't answered me. How did you know?" "How did I know?" Xiao stopped laughing as a strange expression appeared on his face. "You asking this is equivalent to insulting my intelligence. Boy, don't you know what you've done? You've turned a moon god representative into a mount. This sort of news can shake up the whole world. From old devils who are thousands of years old, to babies who are 3 months old, anyone who has ears knows of this." "Why wouldn't I know?" Ling Chen could feel cold sweat burst out as he weakly asked, "And no way, right?" "What do you mean, no way?" Xiao looked at him as if he was an idiot. After the true gods all fell, the Moon God clan became a peerless existence in the mystic moon world. Within the Moon God clan, the goddesses Fate, Order and Freedom hold the most powerful, and then the high-level Moon God representatives. The Cherry Blossom God representative that you subdued was one of those high-level Moon God representatives. There are countless Moon God representatives, but there are only 200 or so high-level Moon God representatives. All of them have the power and status for tens of thousands of creatures to submit to them. No matter what sort of creature, even the rare ones that have the power to defeat them, treat them with the utmost respect and don't dare to disobey them. They don't even dare to think of offending them. And yet, boy, you've made a high-level moon god representative your mount. You've become completely famous in this world, got it? When I heard about this, my heart nearly stopped. My goodness, a high-level moon god representative, where's that cherry blossom god representative? Where is she? Take her out for us to have a look. She's sleeping. She used up too much energy, so she probably won't be able to wake up for a while. Ling Chen replied, still feeling stupefied as waves crashed around inwardly. It was certain that this event would cause a frenzy among the players, which was what he wanted. He never thought that the entire mystic moon world would make a ruckus about this as well. But then again, the news of a high-level moon god representative becoming a person's mount was simply too stimulating. Moreover, the one who subdued her was a player. He was afraid that he had destroyed the worldview of countless mystic moon residents. Ah, forget it then. Xiao, who had looked incredibly excited, could only bitterly look away. He then suddenly patted his head and reached out with his right hand with a swish. He grabbed Ling Chen's arm as he hurriedly asked, "Even though the name is the same, I couldn't believe it was you before, but since it was you, you must have used the soul-stealing curse." A player who was not even LV50 had taken a high-level moon god representative as a pet. If Ling Chen said that he had used his strength to beat her into submission or that the cherry blossom god representative had fallen madly in love with him, Fengchen definitely wouldn't believe him. The only possibility was that Ling Chen had used one of the Fengchen sect's 3 forbidden skills, the one that could leave a mark on the target's soul, the soul-stealing curse. That's right. Ling Chen nodded and gave an overview of what had happened. While she was completely drained, he had used an utter despair curse, then a soul-stealing curse, and had succeeded in one go. Fengchen continuously nodded as Ling Chen spoke. His expression became serious. "Kid, your luck is simply heaven-defying. I knew a soul-stealing curse wouldn't be enough to subdue a high-level moon god representative. So it turned out you were looting from a burning house, taking advantage of her misfortune. Not bad. Not bad. Ling Tian, boy, it seems that I was right in choosing you. No less than expected from my Fengchen Sect successor, your future prospects are limitless." Ling Chen was furiously sweating. Not only did Fengchen not look down on such despicable actions, he lauded it greatly. It was evident what sort of person this old man was. "You're less than LV50, inherited the Fengchen Sect's power for less than half a year, and already unlocked the soul-stealing curse. If our predecessors knew about this, they would probably be shocked enough to jump out of their coffins." Fengchen looked at Ling Chen as he said with a strange expression, "However, with your absurd mental energy, fudge. I don't find this surprising at all. Do you know the soul-stealing curse?" Ling Chen casually asked. "You need to ask." Fengchen patted his chest, "As the simplest of the 3 forbidden curses, if I haven't comprehended it yet, I've lived for nothing over the past 1,000 years or so." "The simplest one?" Ling Chen was shocked. "Are the other 2 forbidden curses even more powerful?" Fengchen looked at him and gave a slight nod as he said, "That's right, they're naturally more powerful. Our Fengchen sect has 3 forbidden curses, soul-stealing curse, soul-killing curse, and Yama curse. Each of them have terrifying effects, and even the heavens and earth cannot contain them. Soul-stealing curse, soul-killing curse, Yama curse." Ling Chen repeated them under his breath and committed them to memory. Fengchen glanced at him and knew what he wanted to know. Thinking to his incredible talent, he continued to speak, "You already know about the soul-stealing curse's effects. Once it takes effect, no matter who the target is, and no matter their status or power, they will become your slave who will never betray you. The soul-killing curse is hundreds, if not thousands, of times more terrifying than the soul-stealing curse. Once it takes effect, the target's soul will no longer belong to them, and will be fully controlled by you. You can read their memories, order them to do anything, as well as control their every single action. Even changing their memories is incredibly simple. Similarly, once they are affected, the effects last forever." As for the Yama curse, Fengchen suddenly fell silent. "What does the Yama curse do? Could it be even more terrifying than the soul-killing curse?" Ling Chen asked. The soul-stealing curse's effects were already heaven-defying, and the soul-killing curse's effects were even more bone-chilling. Fengchen had left the Yama curse for last, meaning that it was the most difficult to unlock, but also the most powerful. Well, within the Fengchen sect, the Yama curse is just a legend. At least, I have never seen it before, and neither have my master or my master's master. No one even knows what its effects are. However, it is undoubtedly the most powerful of the 3 forbidden curses." Fengchen did his best to think, then continued, "However, I heard my master mention that this Yama curse can only be cast on yourself. Other than that, I know nothing about it. You can only use it on yourself? Ling Chen stared. Within the Feng Chen curses he currently possessed, none of them could only be used on himself. However, there was one where he could use on himself and someone else, the lovey-lovey curse. Speaking to there, Xiao Feng Chen suddenly changed the topic as he asked, "Alright, let's stop with the useless waffle, you still haven't answered my question. What are you doing here?" He looked behind him and his eyes flashed as he lowered his voice. "Surely you didn't come here because you got too bored and wanted to get violated in the Fairyland mountain range, right? I need to go in and do something in there," Ling Chen said as he tapped his nose. "Go in? Don't screw with me." Xiao Feng Chen whacked his hand on top of Ling Chen's shoulder as he started to jump up and down like a monkey and he started to curse. "Do you know what sort of monsters there are in the Fairyland mountain range? The most terrifying place in the world is the lunar sky hell, and then this Fairyland mountain range. There are Heaven's End grade monsters walking all over the place, and celestial grade monsters are as common as dogs. A sneeze from any monster is enough to kill you countless times. With your bit of comprehension of the Feng Chen sect skills, you'll just be giving those monsters a free meal." "Are you serious?" Ling Chen was given a big fright. The map only said that the average level and grade of the monsters were quite high, but he didn't think it would be this bad. Heaven's End grade and celestial grade monsters everywhere? Even if it's not that bad, it's something like that, Xiao Feng Chen said as he glared at Ling Chen. He stretched out his neck as he asked, "Why are you going in there?" "I'm going to the Godchild Peak to look for something," Ling Chen replied straightforwardly. Xiao Feng Chen stared at Ling Chen for a whole 5 seconds. He then turned around, waved his hand and said nothing as he left. "Where are you going?" Ling Chen asked in suspicion. "I'm going to get you a goddamn coffin," Xiao Feng Chen retorted in a furious voice. Moreover, these 30 kilometers was assuming he could travel in a straight line. He would have to travel up and down mountains and take roundabout routes to avoid monsters. Realistically, if he wanted to reach the Godchild Peak, he would have to travel twice or 3 times the original 30 kilometers. Looking at irritated Xiao Feng Chen, Ling Chen's eyes suddenly lit up. What did this old man say before? The most terrifying place in the world was the lunar sky hell, and then the Fairyland mountain range, meaning that the Fairyland mountain range wasn't as dangerous as the lunar sky hell. After all, the lunar sky hell sealed the most terrifying and savage ancient beasts, so how could the Fairyland mountain range compare to it? And Xiao Feng Chen was someone who had survived perfectly fine in the lunar sky hell for 1,000 years. This meant that Xiao Feng Chen could pass through this Fairyland mountain range as if he was playing a game. Moreover, when they had first met, Xiao Feng Chen had been coming out of the Fairyland mountain range, and looked quite high-spirited and relaxed. He didn't look tired or frightened at all. Hell yeah. He was simply a super bodyguard arranged for him by the heavens. Ling Chen's eyes became brighter and brighter as he rushed over. "Oi! Oi! Old man Xiao! Wait for me, what old man Xiao? It's Big Brother Xiao! Big Brother Xiao!" Xiao Feng Chen wasn't walking very quickly, and Ling Chen quickly caught up to him. He ran in front of him and blocked his way as his eyes became passionate. You don't need to prepare a coffin. To be honest, Big Brother Xiao, you're completely right with my strength, it's simply absurd for me to go in by myself. However, even though I can't survive in there by myself, that's different for Big Brother Xiao. Back then, you survived in the lunar sky hell for 1,000 years. You went where you wanted and were so mighty and awe-inspiring. The thousands of ancient beasts were not able to do anything to you. To you, this Fairyland mountain range is just a fart. You want me to take you to the bottom of the Godchild Peak? Xiao Feng Chen scowled. So Big Brother Xiao agrees? What are we waiting for then? Let's go now. When the hell did your elder agree? Your elder just came back from there, and you want me to take you over? Do you think my brain isn't working? Feng spoke with his lips curled, splattering Ling Chen's face with spittle. Ling Chen frowned and said with an air of justice, "Big brother Xiao. Don't you remember that we're part of the same sect? As fellow members of the Feng sect, we need to love and care for each other, and help each other in times of need. Only by working together can we make the Feng sect great again. Today, I'm facing some difficulties. If you have the power to help but choose not to, how unrighteous would that be? If the Feng sect's ancestors knew of this, how hurt and pained would they feel? How much despair would they have to experience? How? Stop, stop, stop." Feng Chen's scalp felt numb, and he spent a great deal of effort in shutting Ling Chen up. He then gave a long since as he replied, "AI. Forget it, since things are like this. I'd be an idiot to help you. Goodbye." Hearing the first half of his sentence, Ling Chen felt delighted. Who would have thought that this old man's skill in turning face was so shocking? He was actually able to combine these two contradictory phrases together. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure blurred and a wild gale erupted forth as he streaked away like a rocket. GGGG, goddammit. Ling Chen activated Broken Shadow, and chased after him like a gale. He couldn't afford to not give chase. The Fairyland mountain range was simply too terrifying, and he had no way to ensure that he could reach the Godchild peak alive. Currently, his only hope was to rely on Feng Chen. He cursed Feng Chen's ancestors in his heart as he loudly yelled, "Fudge! Don't run! I saved you from the lunar sky hell back then. Now that I've run into problems, all you do is run. Are you even a man?" Feng Chen completely ignored him and continued to charge forwards. If Ling Chen could see his face, he would have seen that he was grinning wildly. However, he was also feeling quite surprised. This brat's speed wasn't too slow. No, it was actually quite fast. "There's something important I need to do at the Godchild peak, only you can help me. Don't run. We're part of the same sect, and it was even you who dragged me into the Feng sect. In the end, you're more or less my teacher, and yet you, whoosh." Feng suddenly stopped running. Despite traveling at such an extreme speed, he only traveled for another 5 meters after suddenly braking. Ling Chen's eyes widened, and did his best to stop as well, and almost slammed into Feng Chen. "What did you call me?" Feng Chen turned around, his small eyes lighting up. Ling Chen immediately understood. He raised his head and pushed out his chest as he seriously called out, "Teacher." "Fudge. Can't you say it with a pale face, gritting your teeth, looking as if you've just been violated by 7 or 8 muscular men? It's no fun seeing you saying it so proudly." Feng said in a depressed manner. "Che. You want me to say it in an unwilling manner to satisfy your perverted vanity? Keep dreaming." Ling Chen seriously replied, "No way. You gave me the Feng sect's power, so you're more or less my teacher. Forget it, forget it." Feng felt quite helpless. He raised his hand and caught onto Ling Chen's arm as he said in exasperation, "You're sure you want to go to the Godchild peak?" "Absolutely. Tell me the real reason why you want to go there." Feng said as he rolled his eyes. "I just said, I'm going to the summit to look for something." "What is it?" "Secret. However, it's very important to me. Even if I have to spend my whole life searching, I'll definitely find it." Ling Chen said resolutely. Feng wanted to scare Ling Chen a bit and persuade him not to go, but seeing him so determined to go to the summit of the Godchild peak, he swallowed his words. After lapsing into silence for a short while, he said, "Since it's like that, I'll take you to the bottom of the Godchild peak. However, forget it, I'll wait till we get there. Hold on tight, and it's best not to talk on the way." Ling Chen nodded. Chen grabbed Ling Chen under his arm, and the dark green-colored ring on his other hand flashed with a faint green light. Instantly, the two of them flew out like a rocket and traveled more than 100 meters in the blink of an eye. This, holy crap, Ling Chen wanted to ask Chen what skill this was. Although it was a high-level skill that greatly increased his speed, it was vastly different to Broken Shadow that Ling Chen was familiar with. However, as soon as he tried to speak, he understood why Chen had told him not to talk. The instant he opened his mouth, the cold air rushed into his mouth at such a speed that he almost fainted. Ling Chen immediately closed his mouth. He was looking down at the ground, and the ground was passing by at an incomprehensible speed. This sort of speed was much faster than the fastest he had ever been, and the powerful auras around them grew denser and denser until they completely filled the area. A gigantic figure couldn't react in time, and their feet passed over its head. Wait. Feet? Only now did Ling Chen realize that they were in the air. Chen was traveling through the air. Indeed, Chen was an old monster who had lived for more than 1,000 years. Adding on the fact that half of the Chen Sect skills were for escaping, it wasn't too surprising that he could travel through the air. Crowds of large monsters were left far behind them. However, just because they were in the air, that didn't mean that they were safe. On the way, they encountered many flying monsters. They were all gigantic, and some were bigger than even the golden-feathered eagle emperor. Needless to say, LV-90 monsters, no matter the grade, would not be any weaker than a LV-40 celestial grade boss. However, with Chen's incredibly terrifying speed, even the overlords of the sky only noticed a black shadow flash past them and couldn't react at all, let alone attack. After who knows how long, the wind that had almost chafed his ears into destruction finally died down, and then stopped. Ling Chen felt his body released as Chen threw him to the ground. Chen patted his hands as he said, "All right, this is the bottom of the Godchild peak. If you want to go up, start from here." They had arrived, so quickly. Ling Chen looked at the time and was flabbergasted. From when they had set out to now, less than 10 minutes had passed. In the sky, they could naturally travel in a straight line, which greatly reduced the distance they had to travel. They had passed over a few mountains and had avoided a few extremely large and powerful mobs, so they had traveled around 40 kilometers. Accordingly, Chen had traveled at close to 300 kilometers per hour. And this was under the circumstances of carrying someone with him. In the real world, if someone traveled at this speed and then ran into a steel board, a fatty would be turned into a thin meat patty. Ling Chen stood up and looked up as he turned around. The mountain extended from his feet up into the clouds. At the bottom of this mountain, Ling Chen could feel just how tiny he was. In front of this natural giant, all creatures were like tiny specks of sand. Why is it so peaceful here? Where are all the monsters? Ling Chen asked in suspicion as he looked around. On the way here, Ling Chen had seen countless gigantic monsters, and no matter if it was on mountains or not, they were gathered quite densely. However, looking around, he couldn't see a single monster, and couldn't even hear any roars from monsters. Chen curled his lips. At the bottom of the Godchild peak, as well as on the mountain, there are no monsters. Don't ask me why, I don't know either. To those monsters, this place is like a forbidden area. No matter how powerful or weak they are, they never even come close, and stay far away. Oh, Ling Chen replied as he began to carefully examine the geography here. This place is the best place to start climbing the mountain. If you're determined to go, then go. No human has ever been recorded to reach the summit of the Godchild peak, as that is a height for gods, a peak for gods. However, I won't stop you. I can tell how determined you are, so it'll be pointless for me to try to stop you. Moreover, not ever trying to climb the Godchild peak would leave much regret in your life. Ling Chen slowly said as he looked up at the mountain that pierced through the sky, his face full of awe. How many times have you climbed the Godchild peak? What was the highest point you reached? Ling Chen asked. Ling Chen smirked, saying, 1,000 years ago, I probably climbed it about 14 or 15 times. The highest point I reached was about 9,900 meters high. That time, I used many precious defensive treasures to reach that limit. I was only a step away from 10,000 meters, but that step was simply unbridgeable. You need to understand that over these countless years, the number of people who have reached the 10,000-meter point can be counted on a single hand. All of them possessed at least mysterious god-grade power, but not a single one of them has ever reached the summit. Ling Chen put great emphasis on the last sentence. No one had ever accomplished that feat, not even mysterious god-grade experts. Ling Chen couldn't help but feel a bit discouraged as he asked, so what was the highest point climbed by a human? Ling Chen thought for a moment before replying, currently, the record held by a human has lasted for 3,700 years. 3,700 years ago, a mysterious god-grade shield-bearer called Unmoving Heavenly Tower, who was acknowledged by the whole world to be the strongest shield-bearer, reached the 11,000-meter mark. He achieved this through his incredibly strong body, as well as heaven-defying willpower, and apart from him, no one has been able to reach such legendary heights. He knew he couldn't advance any further, so he struggled to leave using a teleportation item. When he left the Godchild Peak, he only had a single breath left in him. It took him nearly 10 years to fully recover. At that moment, he said a phrase. From the 10,000-meter to 11,000-meter point, every step is walking in desperate straits. From 11,000 meters onwards, every step is as difficult as climbing to the sky. Ling Chen stayed silent. Ling Chen looked at him and said, Now, are you still determined to go to the summit? Even though there are no monsters on the Godchild Peak, but there are countless corpses and bones buried up there. Apart from humans, are there any other creatures that are capable of going up there? Ling Chen didn't even think as nodded, of course there are. Any Saint Destroyer grade being can go anywhere they like. Even reaching the summit would be a piece of cake for them. Also, powerful ice-type creatures can also easily make it to the summit. From the 5,500-meter point onwards, the temperature drops with every step you take. The temperature at the 7,000-meter point is the lowest a human's body can endure, and the 8,000-meter point is enough to freeze a person into a corpse. At the 9,000-meter point, there are countless corpses lying around, and at the 10,000-meter point, it becomes an icy prison. The only people who can reach such a point are those who stood at the apex at the time. However, that height was still the limit even for such humans, and every single step they took caused them to hover between life and death. However, ice-type creatures are far more resistant. Every additional sentence Ling Chen spoke caused Ling Chen's head to ache a bit more. Everything that Ling Chen said indicated one thing: humans wanting to reach the summit. That was completely impossible. Over the countless years, the highest a human had climbed was 11,000 meters, and the final 1,000 meters would be hundreds, if not thousands, of times more difficult to climb than the first 11,000 meters. All of those mysterious god-grade humans possessed incredibly strong life force and willpower, as well as monstrous strength. And yet, not a single one of them had succeeded, let alone a measly player who could not even compare to them. Compared to the other orbs, the location of this orb was a bit too cruel. In fact, Ling Chen couldn't even be sure whether Suer's information truly referred to the Godchild Peak or not. However, the 15 lunar scourge orbs were things he had to obtain, no matter what. No matter how terrifying the Godchild Peak was, or the possibility of his efforts being completely wasted, as long as there was a possibility of an orb being up there, he had to go up. No one had ever reached the summit. It was impossible for humans to reach the summit. Ling Chen had never believed in the word impossible before. To him, nothing was truly impossible. He looked up towards the unfathomably tall mountain as he said in a low voice, I must climb up the Godchild peak, and I don't want to wait, I'll do it now. Just because other people can't climb to the summit doesn't mean I can't. Just like you said before, no one has ever escaped from the lunar sky hell before, including those Heaven's End grade and mysterious God grade ancient beasts, and yet we escaped from there. Seeing how determined Ling Chen was, Feng didn't try to convince him anymore, as he knew his efforts would be futile. He sighed and took 2 steps forward as he said, I know I can't stop you, and I don't want to stop you either. Challenging the Godchild peak is something that a man should do. However, take this word of warning from me, when you reach a high altitude and feel that you don't have the power to continue, just stop. Don't grit your teeth and continue to struggle up. Over the years, many people reached their limits like this, but didn't have the strength to go back, and were buried in the snow forever. Even though you players don't fear death, you still have to pay a price if you die. Ling Chen nodded, his eyes looking extremely calm. Oh, I'll give you this. Feng gave him a hard look as a few green things appeared in his hand, which he casually threw to Ling Chen. Azure Dragon Scales, the scales from the Sovereign of Water, the Azure Dragon. After using, releases a layer of icy aura to cover a single target. Allows the target to become immune to the loss of HP from a cold environment for 3 days. Single use only. Feng had given him Azure Dragon Scales. There were a whole 10 of them. Feng calmly spoke, the extremely coldness from the Godchild peak causes one's energy to drain from their body. People who like me who have strong vitality can withstand it, but you players' life force is simply too weak and won't be able to endure it. These scales aren't very useful to me, so I might as well give them to you. The effects of these 10 scales will last for 30 days. This means that when you reach an altitude where you can't bear the coldness and are forced to use the Azure Dragon Scales, you'll only have 30 days to reach the summit. Otherwise, you'll have lost your chance. These are Azure Dragon Scales, the Azure Dragon. Of course, Ling Chen knew just how precious these Azure Dragon Scales were. He didn't refuse and quickly put them away as he replied, thank you. AI, just remember that the most terrifying thing when it becomes cold to a certain degree isn't the loss of energy from your body. Instead, it's your body being frozen and the possibility of your mind being destroyed. Boy, your mental energy is incredibly strong, so I'm sure that you have extremely strong willpower as well. How much you can endure will depend on you. If you can reach at least 9,000 meters, I'll consider that those 10 Azure Dragon Scales weren't a waste. If you're ready, you can go up now. Feng tugged at his beard. He secretly felt a bit hopeful. Perhaps this boy could create some sort of miracle. With his extremely strong mental energy, perhaps his willpower was just as strong. Who knew what heights he could reach with such willpower? Big brother Xiao, you're not coming as well? Ling Chen asked as he looked up. Che, not interested. I'm going now. After leaving those 6 words, Feng turned and rushed off like a wild gale in the next second. He had left so decisively and hadn't even given Ling Chen an opportunity to say anything else. So free and unconstrained, as well as so heartless. Ling Chen, who still had some questions, could only grumble to himself. He turned around and lifted his right foot as he took his first step onto the Godchild peak. His eyes were still and calm as water, and didn't look worried or hesitant at all. Even mysterious God-grade experts were unable to reach the summit. What qualifications did he, a LV-41 player, possess to challenge the Godchild peak? However, he was determined to try, and had even sworn that he would not leave before succeeding. Of course, this wasn't because he had gone crazy, or had done so out of hot-bloodedness. It was because he possessed an incredibly powerful cheat item. Spatial orbs. When he reached his limit, he could immediately return to safety. To other people, once they left, they would have to start again from the bottom. However, with the spatial orbs, he could recover to his optimal condition and return to the point he had been previously. By repeating this cycle and advancing step by step, he would only climb higher and higher and would never have to go backwards. As long as he had enough spatial orbs, he had hoped that he could reach the summit. With such circumstances, what reason did he have not to give it his all? The foot of the Godchild peak wasn't very steep, and there were many trees, grass, birds, and insects. However, just like the area around the Godchild peak, there were not any aggressive beasts. Countless experts had attempted to climb the Godchild peak over the ages, and there were countless trails formed by their footsteps. Ling Chen held his map and confirmed his position every 10 minutes or so. With Xiao Hui leading the way and scouting out the best paths, they proceeded not too quickly nor too slowly towards higher ground. Ling Chen spent the entire day climbing the Godchild peak, and by the time it was dark, he reached the 2,000-meter mark. The entire process had gone incredibly smoothly, and let alone monsters, there weren't even any natural obstacles in his way. Reaching 2,000 meters in one day wasn't too fast, but it wasn't too slow either. After all, it was 1/6 of the entire Godchild peak. However, Ling Chen knew that this couldn't even be called the beginning. After all, even normal people could reach this point with some effort. The 6,000-meter mark was the real starting point. From there onwards, each step would become more and more difficult to take. Ling Chen continued to climb, and the journey to the 5,000-meter mark was quite smooth. Although the Godchild peak was quite high, it was not very steep, at least, that was the case so far. When he reached this point, the air was filled with iciness. As he walked, Ling Chen felt as if there was a stone slab weighing down on his chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. At the 5,500-meter mark, there were essentially no trees or grass, and the snow beneath his feet extended as far as the eye could see. From this point onwards, the temperature fell below 0 degrees Celsius. As he climbed even higher, the frigid wind would become bone-piercingly cold. At this moment, he had nearly reached the middle of the mountain. This meant that in terms of height, he had covered half of the Godchild peak in just 2 days. The true test would start from here. The snow became thicker and thicker beneath his feet, and his footsteps brought with them puff-puff sounds as he trod through the snow. Although it was quite cold, the temperature was still within an acceptable range. There was not yet any drain on his HP from the coldness, but what he did notice was that his breathing became heavier and heavier. 505050. The higher he climbed, the thinner the air became, and the more effort he had to put into breathing. In a virtual game world, players wouldn't die of asphyxiation, but this didn't mean the lack of oxygen didn't affect players at all. Ling Chen's chest felt significantly heavier, and he occasionally felt a bit dizzy, which caused him to frown. He began to walk faster and did not make any stops. By the time he reached the 7,000-meter mark, the air had become bone-chillingly cold. He was now wearing the fur coat that he had prepared in advance, which covered him from head to toe. Although it was freezing, Ling Chen's movement was unimpeded. Moreover, the Godchild peak did not become any steeper either. Huff. Huff. If an ordinary person reached this altitude, even if they could resist the coldness, the low air pressure and thin air would sap their body's strength and their mind's attentiveness, making it hard for them to stay awake. It was likely that they would faint at this point. However, who was Ling Chen? His chest felt considerably weighed down, and his breathing became more ragged. However, his eyes remained just as clear and sharp, and didn't become unfocused at all. With Xiao Hui leading the way and picking the best routes, his journey had been incredibly steady. 8,000 meters, -50, -50, -50. The loss of HP appeared simultaneously for both Ling Chen and Xiao Hui. The icy wind was like sharp blades that cut into Ling Chen's face and the rest of his body. Beneath his feet was still thick layers of snow, and beneath the snow was even thicker layers of ice. Up until this point, even with Ling Chen's balance, he had almost slipped over twice. Xiao Hui's 4 legs were buried in the deep snow, but he was still able to lightly run ahead of Ling Chen, leaving deep trails behind him. Up to now, you've covered 2/3 of the Godchild Peak, Qiyu slowly said. Many humans were able to reach this point, and it was far more difficult for them to reach this point than for Little Master. Ling Chen nodded, saying, indeed, when the toll on my body becomes too great and I feel that I can't stand it anymore, I can log off or use a spatial orb to leave. When I come back, I'll be exactly where I had left. However, the Forgotten Continent's residents only have a single chance. They can either advance or retreat. Once they retreat, they'll have failed, and even if they stop, they won't be able to rest. This coldness and low pressure is able to quickly steal away anyone's strength. The super shield bearer that Xiao Fengchen had told him about was simply a monster. By the time Ling Chen reached the 8,500-meter point, the HP loss had increased to 200 per second, which was 4 times as much as at the 8,000-meter mark. Ling Chen couldn't help but continuously use the most advanced and expensive recovery potions, Azure Potions, to recover his and Xiao Hui's HP, suppressing the drain to his HP. It became more and more difficult to walk, and the suffocating feeling in his chest became greater and greater. Ling Chen looked at the time and took out a teleport scroll, which he shattered. He disappeared in a flash of white light, and appeared in the town nearest to the Fairyland mountain range. He entered the potion shop and bought large quantities of the advanced HP potions, then went to a tea house to have a few cups of hot tea. After having a short nap, 2 hours later, the fully recovered Ling Chen stretched and took out a spatial orb. He chuckled as he said, "My unsuccessful predecessors, watch on in admiration and envy. Big bros got cheat items." He put on his fur coat and crushed the spatial orb. In the next second, he was surrounded by freezing air. Around half of the Forgotten Continent's challengers were already half dead at this point from their struggles in the first 8,000 meters. Even the super experts would have used much of their strength to reach this point. However, after Ling Chen had rested and come back, it was as if this was his starting point. He chuckled in glee as he called out Xiao Hui and activated Broken Shadow. He rushed forwards like a crazy gust of wind, causing snow to swirl and cover the sky. When the HP loss reached 300 HP per second, Ling Chen was forced to use the Azure Dragon Scales that Xiao Fengchen had given him. Apart from the extremely precious Dew of Dawn that he had, none of the other potions he had could keep up with this HP loss. Ding, you have used an Azure Dragon Scale. Within the next 3 days, you will be immune to the HP loss brought by the coldness. Ling Chen could only recall Xiao Hui, as the Azure Dragon Scales only protected him. Up until this moment, he had climbed 8,700 meters, and he would have to walk the remainder alone, if he could make it, that is. 9,000 meters. Reaching this point, 99% of the challengers would despair. Here, no matter how thick one's clothes were, they would be unable to keep out the coldness. The howling cold wind not only stabbed into one's skin, but also mercilessly dug into the inner regions of their body. The coldness wasn't one that only came from outside, the pain from one's organs being twisted due to the cruel coldness would also savagely attack their mind. Their sanity would also become jumbled up due to the incredibly thin air, and their vision would begin to blur. Reaching this point was already an impressive feat. If anyone still had any strength or even a bit of consciousness, they would use all of it to try to leave. This was the wisest and most rational choice. Otherwise, after their body and mind were completely sapped, they would be forever buried here, without any chance of leaving. Evidently, Ling Chen fell within that remaining 1%. The drain to his HP was stopped by the Azure Dragon Scales, and the bone-chilling cold was something that he could bear. This sort of torment compared to the mental pain he had gone through in the past was like comparing a single strand of hair to all of the hair on a cow's body. As for his mind, it was like an unshakable boulder, and had maintained absolute clarity since the very beginning. In this sort of temperature, a normal person's limbs would start to become numb, and their body would no longer listen to them, making walking incredibly difficult. However, Ling Chen also possessed a superhuman control over his body. His steps were just as even and balanced as he walked step by step towards higher ground. Of course, most importantly, he had the spatial orbs. 10,000 meters. Ling Chen reached this point on the fourth day since he had started challenging the Godchild Peak. He had climbed up 5/6 of the Godchild Peak, and there were only 2,000 meters left. It seemed that victory was right in front of him. However, in reality, these last 2,000 meters were a truly hellish path. Every step was akin to walking in desperate straits, every step was akin to climbing to the sky. He had experienced this sort of low-temperature torment many times. Every time he endured this sort of torture it caused his resistance to the cold to skyrocket. However, even though he could endure it, that didn't mean he could adjust to it. Moreover, the chill wasn't the most difficult aspect about climbing the Godchild Peak, it was the incredibly thin air. In this sort of environment, no matter what one did, even if it was just breathing, the effort it took was more than 10 times greater and consumed more than 10 times as much strength. The cold sapped him of his physical strength and the mental toll was like 3 gigantic mountains that weighed down on Ling Chen's body. He felt as if his body was tens of millions of kilograms heavy, and every single step was taken with great difficulty. In this sort of environment, he didn't even have any mind power to keep track of the time. All of his strength and willpower was concentrated on taking each step. Little master, the temperature's approaching the limit that my damaged soul can take. I need to seal myself off, so keep working hard on the rest of the journey. Ling Chen was barely able to hear and registered the voice in his mind, which then disappeared. He raised his right hand with great difficulty and shattered the teleport scroll that appeared within it. A white light flashed and Ling Chen appeared in the town near the Fairyland mountain range. In comparison to the extreme coldness, the normal temperature felt scalding to Ling Chen. Ling Chen, who had barely escaped from the brink of death, fell to the ground on his knees. His palms were pressed against the ground as he opened his mouth wide and crazily gulped in air. The air that he exhaled felt incredibly chilling against the back of his hands. After gasping for breath for a few minutes, Ling Chen's face finally recovered to its normal color, but he didn't remove his coat. He looked at the time, and found that it was already 6 p.m., causing Ling Chen's expression to flicker. In the first 4 days, he had covered 10,000 meters. Today, he had spent the entire day, as well as 10 teleport scrolls and 9 spatial orbs to climb only 300 meters. In other words, it had taken Ling Chen 10 trips to cover 300 meters. He had to return to town every 30 meters on average. That shield bearer who rushed to 11,000 meters in one attempt was simply a monster. Ling Chen said as he gnashed his teeth. He had said this when he reached the 9,000-meter mark, but his emotions when he said it this time were completely different. After restoring his body to its normal temperature, 30 minutes had passed since his strength and mind had completely recovered. Ling Chen gritted his teeth as he took out a spatial orb, preparing to do the final trip of the day. After crushing the spatial orb, Ling Chen returned to the 10,300 point. Immediately, he felt the piercingly cold wind that was like countless cold knives stabbing into his body. Ling Chen wasted no time, and while his body was still warm and hadn't been frozen, and while his body and mind were at their peak conditions, he activated Broken Shadow, and roared as he rushed forwards. However, before he even covered 100 meters, his strength left his body. He had only climbed a bit more than 50 meters, but his body already felt like it weighed thousands of kilograms and would barely listen to him. Ling Chen originally thought that with cheat items like the spatial orbs, the journey would be easy. However, he now realized that he had been completely wrong. Climbing, returning to town, climbing, returning to town. Ling Chen repeated this cycle many times, but the higher he climbed, the slower it became. Unknowingly, Ling Chen had climbed 11,000 meters. He was only 1,000 meters from the summit, and had broken the record for humans climbing the Godchild peak. However, Ling Chen did not feel delighted, as he had cheated tens of times to achieve this. From the 10,000-meter point to the 11,000-meter point, he had used a whole 5 days to climb those 1,000 meters. The 11,000-meter point caused Ling Chen to truly experience what hell was. His head felt as if it had been stuffed with iron blocks. If it wasn't for his extraordinarily powerful mental energy supporting him, he would have long since lost consciousness. He couldn't even feel his hands or feet anymore, as if they weren't part of his body. Every part of his body felt as if it had been frozen into a rock, and even the slightest movement costed him incredible amounts of strength. Moreover, these last 1,000 meters were so steep that they could make anyone despair. The path for the first 6,000 meters was incredibly easy to walk, and as long as they spent some time and energy, most people could make it past those first 6,000 meters. After the first 6,000 meters, the temperature started to fall, but the terrain did not become any steeper. Up until the 10,000-meter mark, Ling Chen did not run into any obstructions from the terrain. However, after the 10,000-meter mark, the terrain became much steeper, and he was susceptible to sliding down at any moment. The final 1,000 meters of the Godchild peak were almost vertical. Moreover, after being covered in snow for countless years, none of the original mountain was visible. It was almost impossible to find footholds to climb with. Ling Chen stared for a while without moving. 10 or so seconds later, he breathed out a breath of cold air and returned to the town near the Fairyland mountain range. Ling Chen now understood why the shield-bearer who had created the record had stopped at the 11,000-meter mark. He more so understood what he meant in saying that every step was as difficult as climbing to the sky. He was sure that, after reaching this point, that shield-bearer had never challenged the Godchild peak again, as he had to endure unimaginable torment for every second he was here. The pain was akin to being stabbed ruthlessly by millions of blades, and he was sure that it was comparable to the traditional execution method of death by 1,000 cuts. Only 1 in a million people would probably be able to endure the pain. Even the legendary shield-bearer wouldn't want to experience such a thing again. Ling Chen knew that in facing this last 1,000 meters, he would have to suffer this sort of torment perhaps hundreds of times. Thinking to there, all of his hesitation and indecisiveness disappeared, and his eyes became incredibly calm. As long as there was a slight hope in resurrecting Shui Ruo, even if he had to endure this sort of pain thousands or tens of thousands of times, he would be willing. Half an hour later, Ling Chen was fully recovered. He took out a spatial orb and shattered it. The Great Ravager and Twilight Spear appeared in Ling Chen's hands. He tightly closed his mouth, trying to prevent any of the cold air from rushing into his lungs. He gripped the weapons in his hands as he slashed towards the solid wall of ice in front of him. Ding! Ding! As the icy sounds rang out, 10 or so centimeters long scratches appeared on the ice. The ice on the Godchild peak had been accumulating for countless years, and could truly be called 10,000-year mystic ice. It was incredibly tough, and was incomparable to ordinary ice. Even with Ling Chen's attack power and the destruction element from the Scorpio orb, he could leave 2 long scratches on it. Ling Chen's eyes stared in concentration as he gave a low shout. Soul sacrifice. Battle soul possession. Having increased his attack power to the limit, Ling Chen sent out 2 Ling Tian slashes towards the wall of ice. Ding! Ding! The resulting sounds should have been clear and crisp, but were instead harsh and ear-piercing. Under Ling Chen's full-powered strikes, fragmented ice shards chaotically flew into the air. In the area where the Great Ravager and Twilight Spear's attacks had struck, 2 gaps that were around 10 centimeters long, wide and in depth appeared. These gaps weren't very big, and Ling Chen attacked again, increasing their size. After attacking 3 times, Ling Chen's body felt incredibly numb. He took a step forwards and spent much effort in stepping on the first gap with his right foot, with his left hand holding on to the gap above. He gritted his teeth as he raised himself up and hefted up the great Ravager in his free hand, opening up a third gap above him. He then gripped on to the third gap as he once again lifted himself up and attacked. After smashing out 8 gaps and climbing around 5 meters, Ling Chen had reached his limit. He couldn't feel his hands or feet at all, and much less was he able to climb any further or attack any more. Ling Chen's body fell from the ice wall and landed in the snow, and his only option was to leave. Half an hour later, Ling Chen once again recovered and returned to the Godchild Peak. When he appeared, his right hand firmly gripped onto the highest gap that he had created previously. The spatial orbs allowed the user to return to any place they had been to before. Ling Chen could immediately teleport to any place he had physically been in before, and he wasn't limited to teleporting to the ground. As such, even if Ling Chen fell, he wouldn't have to worry about his efforts being wasted. As long as he didn't use up all of his spatial orbs, he could immediately return to the highest point he had been. During the first 24 hours of climbing that last 1,000 meters, he had climbed up 28 times, and had used 28 spatial orbs. He had fallen down 5 times, and had covered 102 meters in total. The time it took him to recover was 20 times the amount of time he actually spent climbing. On the second day, he climbed 31 times and used 31 spatial orbs. He fell 11 times and covered 90 meters. On the third day, he climbed 27 times and used 27 spatial orbs. He fell 8 times and covered 82 meters. The fourth day. The fifth day. The 10th day. The 15th day. Every step Ling Chen took on the Godchild Peak made him experience why it was said that every step was as difficult as climbing to the sky. The steep mountain of ice was snow-white and unblemished, and Ling Chen looked extremely striking in contrast to his surroundings, as well as extremely insignificant. His hands and feet were powered on by sheer willpower as he slowly smashed out more gaps. Below him was a long line of gaps in the ice wall, which were all spaced quite evenly. In order to minimize the distance he had to climb, the gaps formed 2 lines that were almost completely straight. Today was the 30th day since he had started climbing the Godchild Peak. It was also the 21st day since he had started climbing the last 1,000 meters. Ling Chen was now only 100 meters away from the goal that he had been dreaming of for the past few days. In 21 days, Ling Chen had covered 900 meters. On average, he had climbed less than 50 meters every day. Moreover, the higher he climbed, the slower his advance became. During that period of time, the incredibly valuable spatial orbs had been rapidly consumed by him like lollies. Although Ling Chen's heart ached, he didn't hesitate at all in using them. This was because he only had this one chance. In future, obtaining things like the Azure Dragon Scales would simply be a dream. He was sure that if he didn't have the Azure Dragon Scales protecting him, in this sort of incredibly harsh and freezing environment, his HP would last a few seconds at most. Every time he lifted himself up, he would see himself getting closer and closer to the summit. This filled his body, which was almost like an ice block, to become filled with hope and motivation as he continued to climb. After a while, the coldness no longer seemed as terrifying, the freezing temperature that normal people couldn't even withstand was completely forgotten about by him, and his eyes were solely fixed on climbing the ice above him. Another 3 days passed. During those 3 days, Ling Chen continued to spend all of his time on climbing the Godchild Peak. To Ling Chen, these last 100 meters was like walking in hell. However, even if it was hell, it wouldn't be able to stop him from moving forwards. He continued to expend great numbers of spatial orbs. Every time he used one, he would be a bit closer to the summit. At this moment, he only had 5 spatial orbs left, the final 5. As such, he did not have the option to retreat. On the third day, from morning until the afternoon, he climbed 30 meters in total. He looked up and could clearly see where the ice wall ended. This indicated that he was nearly at the finish line, causing the blood in his body to boil. He had spent much time, incredible numbers of spatial orbs, and had suffered torment that was unimaginable to normal people. All of that had not come to a waste. The summit of the Godchild Peak, which no human had ever reached before, was right in front of his eyes. He looked at the remaining distance, as his lips slightly curved upwards as his frozen face revealed a faint smile. In this world, there was nothing more rewarding than succeeding after attempting an arduous task filled with countless tribulations. At this moment, the freezing cold temperature was no longer terrifying. Ling Chen's frozen hand lightly tapped the ice wall in front of him as he allowed his body to fall. At the same time, the twilight spear appeared in his hands. Let's go. Moment of elegance. As the light from Moment of Elegance shot out, Ling Chen's body immediately traversed the remaining 15 meters, appearing at the highest point. When his body reappeared, a new world appeared before his eyes. With the Feng technique controlling the direction he fell, his body lightly touched down on the ground. He was at the boundary of the summit, and half of his body fell into snow. I made it. I finally made it. Xiao Hui, Qiyu, I finally made it. During that month, especially the time spent climbing the final 1,000 meters, no one could imagine how much he had endured, nor could anyone imagine how much willpower he had. He had been climbing for every single day, and had never allowed himself to fall unconscious. At this moment, he had finally succeeded, but there was no one to share in his delight with him. This was because Xiao Hui and Ling Er could not be summoned in such an environment, and Qiyu, with her damaged soul, couldn't resist such a climate either. As such, she had sealed herself off and had no idea what was happening in the outside world. Ling Chen had no idea how low the temperature was here. However, he was sure that it was monstrously freezing. Despite reaching the summit, he couldn't relax just yet. Once he relaxed, his mind could easily fall into a chaotic state, causing him to fall unconscious without him realizing. He didn't return to rest, but instead shakily stood up and walked forwards with great difficulty. He couldn't afford to waste the remaining 5 spatial orbs. During the final period of time, he had reduced the number of times he went back and rested as much as possible. However, the consequence was him enduring the bitter cold that normal people couldn't even imagine for greater lengths of time. The summit of the Godchild Peak was quite vast, and was abnormally flat. As Ling Chen looked over, he could only see snow-covered ground, and nothing else. He couldn't even see any rocks that stuck out of the ground. He turned around and saw clouds far below his feet, and even further below, the vast land was covered with countless mountains and rivers. However, none of the mountains were nearly as tall as the Godchild Peak. Mystic Moon Peak, One-Line Sky. This was the Mystic Moon World's peak. Apart from this place, what other place had the qualification to be called the peak of the Mystic Moon World? In that case, where was the orb, and what did the one-line sky mean? If Xiao Hui was out, with his treasure-seeking abilities, he would have been able to find the orb immediately. However, calling Xiao Hui out would simply be sending him to his death. However, in this vast, snow-filled world, where could Ling Chen go to find the orb? Moreover, the ground was covered in thick snow, below which was a thick layer of ice. The orb had been separated from the lunar scourge around 10,000 years ago. It was possible that after 10,000 years, the orb was now buried within the incredibly thick ice. Without Xiao Hui, Ling Chen was unable to even determine the approximate location of the orb. It was akin to looking for a needle in the ocean. Ling Chen frowned and desperately resisted the draining of his physical strength and mind by the coldness. He raised his stiff right arm and continuously looked at the lunar scourge as he slowly advanced. Right now, he could only rely on the lunar scourge to detect the orb. However, he knew that the orb had to be very close in order for this to work. If the ice was too thick, even if he was standing right above it, the lunar scourge would not have any reaction. Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, Ling Chen's body suddenly stopped moving. His head, which felt incredibly heavy, suddenly became incredibly clear again. He widened his eyes as he stared ahead of him. Laughter, why would there be laughter here? Ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha, this time, Ling Chen could hear it even clearer. It definitely wasn't his mind playing tricks on him, nor was it the sound of the cold wind. The laughter sounded piercing, as well as a bit wild and arrogant. Moreover, it was a woman's voice. At the same time, Ling Chen suddenly felt his body become even heavier. It wasn't because his body had become completely frozen, but because an incredibly powerful aura had locked down on him. After being locked onto by the pressure, even if he wanted to leave, he wouldn't be able to anymore. Who? Who is it? Ling Chen shouted out in a low voice. Just saying that short phrase gave the terrifyingly cold air enough time to rush in his lungs, causing his voice to sound hoarse and tremble. Ha ha ha, ho. You can actually speak. This little brother really knows how to surprise someone. After staying here for so long, this is the first time I've seen a human climb up to here. Who would have thought it would be such a youthful little brother? This is much too interesting, ha 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 ha. The voice sounded sharp and piercing, and sounded like two icicles colliding. As the voice sounded out, the snow in front of Ling Chen suddenly flew into the air. As the snow slowly drifted back down, an icy blue figure appeared in front of him. Ling Chen's pupils contracted. In front of him was a tall woman who looked around 30 years old. She was taller than him by half a head height. She had a crown of ice on her head, and was wearing a semi-transparent, thin-looking armor made of ice. She wore boots made of ice, and her figure looked voluptuous and enticing. Her bottom was round and wide, with a slim waist, emanating the airs of a cold and mature woman. The blue armor made of ice gave off a faint, blue light, and even her skin was a faint blue color. Her looks were gorgeous, able to captivate the hearts of most men, but the haze between her eyebrows could cause people to tremble. A woman. Wasn't it said that no human had ever reached the summit before? How could there be a woman here, and from her words, it seemed that she had been here for a long time. Wait, could it be that she wasn't a human? Her armor and skin's color were evidence that she had ice abilities, and were extremely powerful ice abilities. The ice woman gave a coy smile as she strutted towards him. Her chest bounced as she walked, which could cause anyone's blood to boil. However, Ling Chen did not feel aroused at all as he quickly thought, the way this ice woman looked at him was like a hunter looking at his prey. After coming over to Ling Chen, the ice woman revealed an expression of surprise. There isn't any ice aura in your body. Not only do you not have any ice aura, your strength is pitifully weak. I'm very curious how you got up here. Ever since I arrived here, I've never seen any humans climb to the summit. Little brother, you're the first one, you know, you're not a human. Ling Chen struggled to speak as he spat out each word from between his teeth. The ice woman approaching brought out an incredibly dense ice aura. It was now even colder than before. Ha 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 ha, the ice woman started to coyly laugh, as a strange blue light danced in her eyes. Of course I'm not a human. Despite this, I'm able to do anything a human can. However, humans definitely aren't capable of doing what I'm able to. Look at you, your body's almost completely frozen, I'm sure you're not able to even move your pinky. However, after so long, your gaze hasn't become muddled, and you're even able to talk to me. What shocking willpower. The ice woman was completely right. After being frozen for so long, Ling Chen's body was almost as hard as a rock. He couldn't even move a single finger. In the past, when he was nearing this state, he would always return to the town to recover. However, being locked down by the ice woman's aura, he was unable to leave. Compared to his body, his mental energy was much, much stronger. Even if his body couldn't stand it, his mind wouldn't be destroyed so easily. Even staying 2 to 3 hours in this sort of environment which had a devastating toll on one's mind would be no problem for him. As my first human visitor here, how should I welcome you? Should I directly eat you, or eat you after I've enjoyed you? The ice woman stretched out a slim and long finger, tapping on Ling Chen's forehead, then slowly drew a line down his face, then his neck. Her smile looked incredibly sultry. Ling Chen's face paled. Ling Chen's eyes slightly moved as an expression of terror appeared on his face. However, his eyes were cold as a strange light flickered within them. Utter despair curse. The smile on the ice woman's face suddenly faded, then completely disappeared. Her eyes, which shone with an icy blue light, also dimmed. The excitement, humor, and seductiveness all disappeared into nothingness. She suddenly lost all interest in this intruding humor. In fact, she had lost interest in everything. Everything under the heaven seemed so lackluster, and she didn't want to even bother looking at anything. The world was always white and uninteresting. Her body was cold, her heart was cold, and even her soul was cold. She didn't have any family, friends, or even anyone to talk to. She lived like a walking corpse in this cold, white world, day after day, year after year. What was the point of living like this? Why did she want to continue to live? All of her beliefs were paler than snow. Why did she continue to exist like this? The ice woman's blue eyes lost their spirit and became a deathly gray color. She couldn't find anything that even remotely interested her, and the reasons why she had stayed here for countless years all seemed incredibly insignificant and absurd. She started to desire death, because she simply couldn't find any reason to continue living. She felt that she would only find peace and relief in death. Currently, the ice woman had completely fallen under Ling Chen's utter despair curse. If he had tried to cast this while they were fighting, with the ice woman's strength, there would have only been around a 50% chance for the curse to take effect. However, Ling Chen had been completely frozen, and looked completely defenseless to the ice woman. Moreover, he was incredibly weak compared to her, so she did not put up any guard against him, and as such fell for the curse completely. The pressure locking down Ling Chen's body completely disappeared, and the ice woman looked as if she had been violated by 70 or 80 rough men. Her eyes continued to look at Ling Chen, but her eyes were incredibly murky, and looked as if she was looking at a dead object. What's the point of me staying here? Why am I still living? The ice woman muttered to herself. Ling Chen moved his frozen lips with great effort, and tried to say things that would prompt the ice woman, under the effect of the utter despair curse, to commit suicide. This wasn't impossible to those in utter despair. Death seemed quite tempting. However, after being frozen for so long, Ling Chen couldn't even open his mouth, and couldn't utter a single word. The ice woman stretched out her hand, with some unknown object in the center of it. She hazily gazed at the object as she continued to mumble, "For this thing. I've lived like this, how boring. I should throw it away, throw it away." As she spoke, the ice woman threw away the thing in her hand without any hesitation at all. The thing that was thrown out arced in the air and fell next to Ling Chen's right foot. It sunk into the snow, leaving a small crater in the snow. She blandly looked at Ling Chen as she casually waved her hand, and a blue light covered Ling Chen's body. She turned around and slowly and powerlessly walked forwards, as she tiredly spoke, "Leave, go wherever you want, just leave, ding. Snow soul light has been cast on you. All effects from the cold environment will be nullified for the next 10 minutes. The instant the blue light touched Ling Chen's body, he could once again feel his frozen body, and the freezing air no longer assaulted his body. The chill within his body then quickly disappeared. He heard the system announcement clearly. The ice woman had cast this blue light on him, making him immune to all effects from the cold for 10 minutes. The current feeling in his body was evidence of this. Despite this, after being frozen for so long, his body was unable to immediately recover. As the feeling of cold retreated, he gradually regained control over his body. Ling Chen bit his teeth and mustered all of his willpower to move his body. The utter despair curse only lasted for 22 seconds, and after the ice woman recovered, things would become ugly. About 10 seconds later, Ling Chen could finally control his arms and waist. His gaze fell on the thing the ice woman had thrown out, and quickly picked it up. An icy and smooth feeling entered his hand. It was a jet-black piece of jade with a smooth surface, and was in a C shape. It was just big enough to fit in his hand, and an ice character was engraved in the back. Ling Chen frowned. This size, shape and the character on the back, could this be Demon Jade Hook Ice, jade that the ice demon beast carries? It is said that it was given to her by the then demon emperor. Unable to determine what material it is made of and its use. Apart from the ice character, this piece of jade was exactly the same as the ones he had obtained in the past. Evidently, it was one of the 10 demon jade hooks. Ling Chen finally understood just who this ice woman was. She was one of the 10 ancient demon beasts, the ice demon beast. Indeed, she was not a human, but a demon beast in the form of a human. The demon jade hook contained part of the demon emperor's soul, which was one of the necessary items to save Shura. Ling Chen obtaining this demon jade hook was an unexpected surprise. At this moment, the crushing pressure once again enveloped Ling Chen's body, as the ice woman furiously shrieked, "Feng Chen murdering heart curse." Ling Chen raised his head as his eyes narrowed into slits. The duration for the utter despair curse had expired, and the ice woman had returned to normal. For her to be able to call out the Feng Chen murdering heart curse's name, she evidently knew about the Feng Chen sect. It seemed that the Feng Chen sect was indeed quite famous back in the past. At the same time, the ice woman was now mentally prepared, making it almost impossible for Feng Chen curses to work on her anymore. The ice woman's gaze fell on the jade in Ling Chen's hand, and a blue light flashed in her eyes as her expression became savage. "Return that jade hook to me." Every jade hook contained a tenth of the demon emperor's soul, and were the demon beast clan's only hope in resurrecting the demon emperor. Even if they lost their lives and destroyed themselves, they wouldn't wish to see the demon jade hooks be lost. Seeing the human hold that piece of jade, then thinking back to her actions from just before, she felt uncontrollably furious and completely hated Ling Chen. She had fallen for a tiny human's ploy, and had thrown away the most precious things on her because of that. "I found it on the ground, why do I need to give it to you?" Ling Chen innocently replied. "Then go die." In her fury, the ice woman's voice became even more piercing. She raised her arms as 5-3-meter long, 15-centimeter wide icicles appeared behind her. Just as they were about to fly towards Ling Chen, he chuckled as he activated the lunar scourge. However, the instant the lunar scourge started to shine with a brilliant light, Ling Chen's heart suddenly thumped as he remembered what Qiyu had said to him back when he had encountered the war demon beast. Qiyu had warned him to never use the lunar scourge's power in front of the ancient demon beasts. These ancient demon beasts that had lived for over 10,000 years had all seen the lunar scourge before, and they would recognize it. The consequences would be incredibly dire. Ding! The Libra Orb's effects have been activated. Moon Flare's cooldown time has been reset. However, Ling Chen had already activated it, and could not stop it anymore. The piercing silver light caused the ice woman to scream even louder as she stopped her attack and desperately covered her eyes. "My eyes! My eyes! I can't see anything!" The ice woman roared in terror and rage. She had hidden here for countless years, and faced this white world every day. Her eyes were much more sensitive to light than normal creatures, and it was the first time in more than 10,000 years since she had experienced such a thing. Humans are indeed the most despicable creatures. I should have killed you the instant I saw you. I'll make you suffer the cruelest punishment for stealing my jade hook. After the light from Moon Flare disappeared, the roaring ice woman finally had relief. However, just as she opened her eyes, Ling Chen cast a second Moon Flare. Argh! This shriek of pain and anger was sharper than the previous one by more than 10 times. The ice woman's fury now reached its limit. As one of the 10 ancient demon beasts, it was an apex mysterious god existence, but had fallen into a human's trap. She allowed him to steal the most precious thing to her, and was blinded twice. She had never suffered such humiliation before in her life. The current ice woman was like a barrel of explosives with its fuse lit. Go, die. The ice woman tightly squeezed her eyes shut against the bright silver light as she raised her hands high in the air. Large amounts of water elemental essence gathered wildly in her hands, which she sent flying in front of her. Ling Chen had been paying attention to her movements the entire time. In her extreme rage, the ice woman unleashed one of her most deadly ultimate skills, causing Ling Chen's eyes to light up. An ultimate skill. I was worried you wouldn't use one. Because of moon flare, the ice demon beast was unable to see anything, and started to panic. As such, she was unable to even determine Ling Chen's position, so she started to use ice-type AoE attacks. This attack unleashed with all of her fury was definitely going to be a powerful one. Of course, Ling Chen wasn't afraid, as he had the evil god's mask. Conversely, he hoped that the ice demon beast's attack would be incredibly powerful, so that the reflected attack would be more powerful. Immediately, he found out just how terrifying the ice demon beast's attacks were in this icy environment. In just an instant, cold wind started to howl around the Godchild peak, blowing all of the snow that had been stored for countless years into the sky. The snow completely covered the sun and sky, and hovered hundreds of meters high in the air. Underneath the snow was thick layers of ice. Not only was it mystic ice that had been stored for countless years, but was more than 100 meters thick. It was like a gigantic ice lid covered the summit. Let alone a mysterious god-grade being, even a saint-destroyer-grade being would find it difficult to destroy. However, the ice demon beast was an exception, because its main ability was controlling ice. Despite being mystic ice from 10,000, or even 100,000 years ago, its mysterious god power could still control it. Crack. -60006000. That was the sound of the ice cracking, but Ling Chen never knew that ice could produce such a terrifying sound. That sound shook the world around him, and the ground started to violently tremble, causing Ling Chen to stumble. The ice and snow that filled the air completely obscured his vision, making it difficult for him to see around him. However, he knew all of the snow had been lifted up in the air, and fissures started to rapidly extend along the layer of ice. At the same time, an incredibly powerful wave of ice energy savagely smashed into him. An attack full of fury from a mysterious god-grade being had enough power to destroy the heavens and the earth, and could insta-kill Ling Chen in his peak condition more than 100 times. In that instant, the eyes of the evil god's mask on Ling Chen's face shone with a red light and let out a low and furious roar. The wave of ice energy acted as if it was a beast that had been violently scared, and shot back and slammed into the ice demon beast. The ice demon beast grunted as she was blasted back. She didn't fear ice attacks, but she couldn't completely dispel the momentum from that attack. The evil god's mask had saved Ling Chen from a fatal attack, but it could only do so every 10 seconds. Ling Chen's body was then lifted into the sky by the massive snowstorm. -60006000, plus 6500 plus 6500. Compared to the ice attacks from the ice demon beast, the snowstorm only served to harass him. However, despite the fact that it was simply a harassing move, it came from a mysterious god-grade being, and still carried with it massive amounts of damage. In just 2 seconds, Ling Chen's HP almost emptied out. Ling Chen took a great shock as he immediately drank down a drop of Dew of Dawn. Plus 6500, plus 6500. The Dew of Dawn combined with the effect from Fairy's Blessing, stopped the snowstorm from reducing Ling Chen's HP even further. Ling Chen gave a sigh of relief, after which the effects from Moon Flare ended. The snowstorm also weakened, and Ling Chen's body was thrown down from the air and fell onto the cold, hard layer of ice. Because of how slippery the ice was, his body slid for a while before stopping. Ling Chen quickly equipped the Twilight Spear and prepared to stab it into the ground to stop himself from sliding. However, just as he raised the spear, he suddenly couldn't feel anything under his feet. This came as a big surprise to Ling Chen, and he quickly looked behind him. Only then did he find that he had slid into a large fissure. The fissure was 3 meters wide, and was nearly 100 meters in length. By the time he had realized what was happening, more than half of his body had fallen in. The ice was incredibly slippery, and although Ling Chen had reacted as quickly as possible, he was unable to stop himself from falling in. He had blocked the ice demon beast's attack, but had fallen into a fissure in the ice. He had been quite unlucky, making him feel so depressed that he wanted to cough up blood. As his body quickly fell, the fissure became narrower and narrower, and the walls of ice on either side came closer and closer. Ling Chen deeply breathed in as he summoned the Great Ravager as well, and after activating Battle Soul Possession, he smashed at the ice on either side of him. Bang! Dong! The Twilight Spear was quite sharp, and easily pierced into the ice. Although it didn't pierce too deeply into the ice, it was enough. The Great Ravager was a blunt weapon, and didn't have much piercing power. However, with its weight, and a full-strength attack from Ling Chen, it managed to bury itself into the ice. Ling Chen was finally able to stop falling by hanging on to his 2 weapons. Ling Chen deeply breathed in and out, his head beaded with cold sweat. He somewhat hesitantly looked below him, and what Ling Chen saw caused his body to tremble, and he almost fell down again. What was under his feet was a large dark tunnel, and the 2 walls of ice were like massive cliffs that extended down for eternity. This was evidently just a fissure in the layer of ice, so why did it become a bottomless abyss? And Ling Chen was hanging right above this abyss. How was this possible? It didn't make sense. Ling Chen ranted to himself inwardly. Suddenly, he felt a large pressure descending on him from above. He subconsciously looked up, and found that a 1 meter long and wide block of ice was falling towards him with great precision. In this sort of situation, Ling Chen wouldn't be able to escape even if he was a god. Bang! The free-falling large block of ice accurately fell on Ling Chen's head. GGGG Goddamit. The instant he was hit by the block of ice, Ling Chen felt an incredibly strong desire to curse and swear. He had blocked the ice demon beast's terrifying attack, but had fallen into this fissure. After he had finally steadied himself and stopped falling, a large block of ice had fallen on him. This was the only block of ice of that size that he had seen falling, and it just had to have fallen on his head. This was definitely his unluckiest day in the game. Just like that, together with the block of ice, he began to fall even faster down the fissure. The block of ice stayed on top of him, weighing him down and making it almost impossible for him to slam his weapons into the 2 walls of ice again. He could only unhappily continue to fall deeper and deeper, deeper and deeper, and as he fell, his surroundings became darker and darker. 652. Chi. The space under him was clearly empty, but Ling Chen felt his body meet some resistance, causing him to stop falling momentarily. The lunar scourge on his wrist flashed with a black light, and he continued to fall. However, the weight of the block of ice on him disappeared. Ling Chen looked up and was surprised to see that the block of ice had stopped in the air, as if it was resting on something. It was exactly where he had felt that strange resistance. What was going on? How could a block of ice float in the air? An idea popped into his mind as he felt a gust of wind rising to meet his feet. With a slight thought, Ling Chen activated the decrease in falling speed from the Feng technique, slowing his descent. Bang! -652. Ling Chen's body heavily hit the ground, and he found that he wasn't standing on a slippery layer of ice. The impact caused him to feel a bit dizzy, but he was still able to land in an upright manner. Ling Chen shook his head and looked around him. The scenery that greeted his eyes left him feeling stunned. After falling down that fissure, the place he landed in should definitely be the narrowest point in the fissure. If the layer of ice completely separated, the place he fell should be the actual summit of the Godchild peak that had been buried under the ice and snow from countless years. The true summit of the Godchild peak. However, there were large ice cliffs on either side of Ling Chen, seeming like two gigantic mountains that were right next to each other. Instead, what Ling Chen saw was an impossibly vast area. When he was falling, there was only about a 3-meter gap between either side of the fissure, and the narrowest point he felt was about 2 meters. However, the place he was standing was around 20 to 30 meters wide. And the altitude. Ling Chen looked up and felt even more shocked. It was completely dark, and the only bit of light came from directly above him. Nearly 50 meters above him, he could still see the block of ice that had fallen with it. It strangely had remained there, while he had fallen down into this incomprehensible space. Ling Chen quickly realized that this space likely hadn't seen the sun in countless years due to the ice and snow. However, because of the ice demon beast's power, the layer of ice had been ripped open, down to this point, causing him to fall down here. Moreover, the block of ice that hadn't fallen down added to the strangeness of this place. Ling Chen shook his head and started to look around him. He was standing on dirt and soil. Although it had become incredibly hard due to the cold temperature, it definitely wasn't ice. In fact, there wasn't even a thin layer of ice here. Although the ground was made of dirt and soil, it was abnormally flat, as if it had been cleanly cut with a sharp blade. All around him were even, stone walls. This flat ground and the stone walls didn't seem like things that had naturally formed. There were 2 small piles of blue ice crystals on the ground to Ling Chen's left. When Ling Chen looked around, they were the first things he noticed, due to their faint but beautiful blue light. Even the legendary luminous pearls could only give off light in the darkness after soaking in light. However, despite this place not receiving any light, these ice crystals could still give off light, which was incomprehensible. Ling Chen walked over, and just as he approached them, he suddenly stopped. His eyes shifted from the ice crystals to the region in between the 2 piles of ice crystals, and stayed fixed there. That was because there was a door there. Embedded into the dark stone wall was a stone door, that was essentially fused into the wall. After walking closer, Ling Chen could make out the details on the door. Could it be that this space was created by people? Or was it created by the ice demon beast? No, didn't seem possible. The place had been buried under the incredibly thick ice, which had been without a crack before. This amount of ice could only have layered up after innumerable years. As such, it was unlikely that this space was created by the ice demon beast. Who had created this space then? Actually, who could create such a strange space at the Godchild peak? Ling Chen felt an urge to summon Xiao Hui. With Xiao Hui's abilities, perhaps he could find out the origins of this space. However, this was still near the summit, and although Xiao Hui's life force was quite strong, he would not be able to last very long. After some internal conflict, Ling Chen gave up on this idea. He didn't want to risk putting Xiao Hui in danger. Ling Chen walked over to the door and stopped about 1 step away. After thinking for a while, he pressed his hand against the door and tried to push it open. Just as his palm touched the incredibly cold stone door, the door suddenly let out a bright white light. Ling Chen immediately retracted his arm and moved back 3 body lengths like a bolt of lightning. The entire stone door was glowing, dyeing the entire space in a white light. However, there were no dangerous airs coming from it. After being alert for a few moments, Ling Chen released the breath he was holding and frowned as he looked at the strange door. It had glowed after he touched it. What was going on? Moreover, Ling Chen looked above the stone door and saw that there were 3 round holes glowing with white light. Each hole was very small, about the size of a ping-pong ball, and were evenly spaced above the stone door. Could it be that these holes were keyholes used to open the door? Godchild Peak, underneath the mystic ice, a strange space, a mysterious door. What sort of world-shaking secret lay behind this door? Ling Chen's heart thumped. He knew he had accidentally fallen down this fissure, but had discovered something remarkable. If he had discovered some secret space elsewhere, he wouldn't have felt as excited. However, this door had been hidden at the summit of the Godchild Peak. It definitely wasn't ordinary. With Xiao Hui's abilities, or Qi Yu's knowledge, he might be able to gain some information about this place and the door. However, right now it was just himself standing in front of this door without anyone here to help him. All of Ling Chen's focus was gathered on this mysterious door, and he completely ignored everything else. He even forgot that the immunity to the coldness that the ice demon beast had gifted to him only lasted for 10 minutes. Once the 10 minutes passed, the temperature would consign him to a hopeless fate again. Ling Chen looked over the entire door, then looked back at the 3 round holes. His eyebrows suddenly jumped as he realized that underneath the holes, there seemed to be different colors, as if there were words engraved there. Ling Chen walked over, and when he was less than half a step away, he could see the small words engraved under each hole. Celestial Slayer, Heaven Slayer, God Slayer. These 6 words were small and faint, and one wouldn't notice them if they weren't paying attention. These 6 words caused Ling Chen to stare in surprise, and after thinking for a few moments, he looked up and looked at the 3 round holes. His eyebrows once again jumped. Those names, and that size. Could it be? Ling Chen opened his bag and took out 2 items that he had nearly forgotten about. In his palm were 2 insignias that were the same size, but were different colors. One was silver and the other were gold, and they looked roughly the same size as the holes above the stone door. Their names were Celestial Slayer Insignia and Heaven Slayer Insignia. Both of these insignias had been obtained by Ling Chen by chance. He had obtained the Celestial Slayer insignia from killing the greedy giant toad, and the Heaven Slayer insignia was from killing the mountain giant. Despite being incredibly rare and precious insignia equipment, they didn't give any stats, which had made Ling Chen feel quite depressed. However, he didn't forget the words in their descriptions, does not give any bonus stats. Legends say that it can open an ancient ruin that has been sealed. Was it a coincidence, or? Ling Chen's heart was filled with hope. He raised his hand and tried to put the Celestial Slayer insignia in the hole labeled Celestial Slayer, which was the one furthest to the left, and pressed it in. Clink. A suction force suddenly erupted from the round hole and sucked the Celestial Slayer insignia into it, allowing it to perfectly slot in. At the same time, the Celestial Slayer insignia suddenly shone out with a powerful silver light, and a red celestial character appeared on its surface. Ling Chen's mouth fell open. So it really was like that. So the Celestial Slayer insignia was one of the keys to opening this mysterious door on the Godchild Peak. So the ancient ruins referred to this door? Could there be some sort of mysterious and legendary ruins behind this door? Then the Heaven Slayer insignia. Ling Chen did the same thing with the Heaven Slayer insignia, bringing it towards the round hole labeled Heaven Slayer. As expected, the Heaven Slayer insignia was also sucked in, and released a gold light, after which the red, attention-catching character, Heaven, appeared on the surface. The final round hole was still empty, and was labeled God Slayer. God Slayer insignia. The Celestial Slayer insignia had been awarded to the first player who had solo-killed a Celestial grade boss. The Heaven Slayer insignia had been awarded to the first player who had solo-killed a Heaven's End grade boss. In that case, the God Slayer insignia would be awarded to the first player who could solo-kill a mysterious God grade boss. Solo-killing a mysterious God grade boss, to most players, this seemed like a task that was more difficult than climbing to the sky. However, facing this mysterious door which only needed the God Slayer insignia to open, Ling Chen's heart was filled with a strong desire. He desperately wanted to know just what sort of amazing thing was hidden behind this door. Moreover, he already had 2 out of the 3 keys, so there was no reason for him not to obtain the 3rd key. Evidently, having 2 keys wasn't enough to open this door. Ling Chen walked forwards and took the Celestial Slayer insignia and Heaven Slayer insignia off. After a while, the light from the door dimmed, and the door returned to its original state. After settling down, Ling Chen suddenly remembered the situation he was in. Crap! He had to quickly leave. The Snow Soul light cast by the Ice Demon Beast would run out soon, and when the time came, he would be completely frozen here. Thinking about that, Ling Chen quickly took out a teleport scroll and prepared to leave. The Ice Demon Beast was still above, so looking for the orb at the summit was going to be impossible. As such, he could only leave and strategize for a while. Ding, you are currently in a forcefully sealed space and cannot use spatial items to leave. Ling Chen felt shocked, and immediately took out a spatial orb, which he tried to crush. However, he received the same system announcement. A sealed space, couldn't use spatial items to leave. Ling Chen looked up towards the place where he had fallen down from. The ice block was still there, as if it had been caught by something invisible. At this moment, Ling Chen suddenly realized that there was probably some formless seal that prevented anything from entering or exiting. As such, neither the layer of ice at the summit, nor the block of ice in the air could fall down here. But why could he come down here, having only met some slight resistance on the way down? Could it be the lunar scourge? Looking at the lunar scourge on his wrist, Ling Chen's uncertainty disappeared. Ling Chen had experienced the lunar scourge's ability to open sealed spaces quite a few times. Back when he had first met Xi Ling, it was the lunar scourge that had removed the seal and freed her. In the East Ocean continent, it had opened the seal guarding the Sunrise City's city lifeline. It seemed that this time was also because of the lunar scourge. However, this realization also caused Ling Chen's joy to freeze over. He couldn't use a teleport scroll, nor could he use a spatial orb. There was only a mysterious door, as well as the fissure where he had fallen from. However, the fissure was nearly 50 meters high in the air. He simply couldn't make it up there. With the spread wings skill, he could float up to 20 meters high, after which he could use Moment of Elegance to cover another 15 meters. However, that was only 35 meters in total, which wouldn't be enough to make it back up to the fissure. As for climbing, that was even less of an option. There was nothing to climb with, and nothing to use as a foothold. Moreover, there were only 2 or 3 minutes left on the Snow Soul light, cast by the Ice Demon Beast. Once the effects ended, he would be quickly frozen, without any way to recover. When that happened, he wouldn't be able to use spread wings, much less climb out. As such, the only way he could leave here was death. When the Azure Dragon Scales effects ran out, he would die from the coldness and would respawn in the Azure Dragon City. However, Ling Chen simply couldn't accept the consequences of dying. Ling Chen tightly frowned, and the massive impending danger made him feel suffocated. Did he really have to die here? He walked to the position right beneath the fissure, and stood where he had originally fallen. Ling Chen looked up towards the fissure in the layer of ice, bitterly thinking of ways to escape. The fissure was quite narrow, but was very long. Ling Chen couldn't see where it extended to, but it was very straight, as if a sharp sword had cut it from the heavens. Ling Chen stood at the bottom as he looked up at a beautiful and thin white line. That was the sky that could be seen outside the fissure. Ling Chen suddenly felt stunned. The ice, the sky, a line. One line sky. Door? Why was there a door here? Could it be that this space was created by people? Or was it created by the Ice Demon Beast? No, didn't seem possible. The place had been buried under the incredibly thick ice, which had been without a crack before. This amount of ice could only have layered up after innumerable years. As such, it was unlikely that this space was created by the Ice Demon Beast. Who had created this space then? Actually, who could create such a strange space at the Godchild Peak? Ling Chen felt an urge to summon Xiao Hui. With Xiao Hui's abilities, perhaps he could find out the origins of this space. However, this was still near the summit, and although Xiao Hui's life force was quite strong, he would not be able to last very long. After some internal conflict, Ling Chen gave up on this idea. He didn't want to risk putting Xiao Hui in danger. Ling Chen walked over to the door and stopped about one step away. After thinking for a while, he pressed his hand against the door and tried to push it open. Just as his palm touched the incredibly cold stone door, the door suddenly let out a bright white light. Ling Chen immediately retracted his arm and moved back 3 body lengths like a bolt of lightning. The entire stone door was glowing, dyeing the entire space in a white light. However, there were no dangerous airs coming from it. After being alert for a few moments, Ling Chen released the breath he was holding and frowned as he looked at the strange door. It had glowed after he touched it. What was going on? Moreover, Ling Chen looked above the stone door and saw that there were 3 round holes glowing with white light. Each hole was very small, about the size of a ping-pong ball, and were evenly spaced above the stone door. Could it be that these holes were keyholes used to open the door? Godchild Peak, underneath the mystic ice, a strange space, a mysterious door. What sort of world-shaking secret lay behind this door? Ling Chen's heart thumped. He knew he had accidentally fallen down this fissure, but had discovered something remarkable. If he had discovered some secret space elsewhere, he wouldn't have felt as excited. However, this door had been hidden at the summit of the Godchild Peak. It definitely wasn't ordinary. With Xiao Hui's abilities, or Qi Yu's knowledge, he might be able to gain some information about this place and the door. However, right now it was just himself standing in front of this door without anyone here to help him. All of Ling Chen's focus was gathered on this mysterious door, and he completely ignored everything else. He even forgot that the immunity to the coldness that the ice demon beast had gifted to him only lasted for 10 minutes. Once the 10 minutes passed, the temperature would consign him to a hopeless fate again. Ling Chen looked over the entire door, then looked back at the 3 round holes. His eyebrows suddenly jumped as he realized that underneath the holes, there seemed to be different colors, as if there were words engraved there. Ling Chen walked over, and when he was less than half a step away, he could see the small words engraved under each hole. Celestial Slayer, Heaven Slayer, God Slayer. These 6 words were small and faint, and one wouldn't notice them if they weren't paying attention. These 6 words caused Ling Chen to stare in surprise, and after thinking for a few moments, he looked up and looked at the 3 round holes. His eyebrows once again jumped. Those names, and that size. Could it be? Ling Chen opened his bag and took out 2 items that he had nearly forgotten about. In his palm were 2 insignias that were the same size, but were different colors. One was silver and the other were gold, and they looked roughly the same size as the holes above the stone door. Their names were Celestial Slayer Insignia and Heaven Slayer Insignia. Both of these insignias had been obtained by Ling Chen by chance. He had obtained the Celestial Slayer insignia from killing the greedy giant toad, and the Heaven Slayer insignia was from killing the mountain giant. Despite being incredibly rare and precious insignia equipment, they didn't give any stats, which had made Ling Chen feel quite depressed. However, he didn't forget the words in their descriptions, does not give any bonus stats. Legends say that it can open an ancient ruin that has been sealed. Was it a coincidence, or? Ling Chen's heart was filled with hope. He raised his hand and tried to put the Celestial Slayer insignia in the hole labeled Celestial Slayer, which was the one furthest to the left, and pressed it in. Clink. A suction force suddenly erupted from the round hole and sucked the Celestial Slayer insignia into it, allowing it to perfectly slot in. At the same time, the Celestial Slayer insignia suddenly shone out with a powerful silver light, and a red celestial character appeared on its surface. Ling Chen's mouth fell open. So it really was like that. So the Celestial Slayer insignia was one of the keys to opening this mysterious door on the Godchild Peak. So the ancient ruins referred to this door? Could there be some sort of mysterious and legendary ruins behind this door? Then the Heaven Slayer insignia. Ling Chen did the same thing with the Heaven Slayer insignia, bringing it towards the round hole labeled Heaven Slayer. As expected, the Heaven Slayer insignia was also sucked in, and released a gold light, after which the red, attention-catching character, Heaven, appeared on the surface. The final round hole was still empty, and was labeled God Slayer. God Slayer insignia. The Celestial Slayer insignia had been awarded to the first player who had solo-killed a Celestial grade boss. The Heaven Slayer insignia had been awarded to the first player who had solo-killed a Heaven's End grade boss. In that case, the God Slayer insignia would be awarded to the first player who could solo-kill a mysterious God grade boss. Solo-killing a mysterious God grade boss, to most players, this seemed like a task that was more difficult than climbing to the sky. However, facing this mysterious door which only needed the God Slayer insignia to open, Ling Chen's heart was filled with a strong desire. He desperately wanted to know just what sort of amazing thing was hidden behind this door. Moreover, he already had 2 out of the 3 keys, so there was no reason for him not to obtain the 3rd key. Evidently, having 2 keys wasn't enough to open this door. Ling Chen walked forwards and took the Celestial Slayer insignia and Heaven Slayer insignia off. After a while, the light from the door dimmed, and the door returned to its original state. After settling down, Ling Chen suddenly remembered the situation he was in. Crap! He had to quickly leave. The Snow Soul light cast by the Ice Demon Beast would run out soon, and when the time came, he would be completely frozen here. Thinking about that, Ling Chen quickly took out a teleport scroll and prepared to leave. The Ice Demon Beast was still above, so looking for the orb at the summit was going to be impossible. As such, he could only leave and strategize for a while. Ding, you are currently in a forcefully sealed space and cannot use spatial items to leave. Ling Chen felt shocked, and immediately took out a spatial orb, which he tried to crush. However, he received the same system announcement. A sealed space, couldn't use spatial items to leave. Ling Chen looked up towards the place where he had fallen down from. The ice block was still there, as if it had been caught by something invisible. At this moment, Ling Chen suddenly realized that there was probably some formless seal that prevented anything from entering or exiting. As such, neither the layer of ice at the summit, nor the block of ice in the air could fall down here. But why could he come down here, having only met some slight resistance on the way down? Could it be the lunar scourge? Looking at the lunar scourge on his wrist, Ling Chen's uncertainty disappeared. Ling Chen had experienced the lunar scourge's ability to open sealed spaces quite a few times. Back when he had first met Shi Ling, it was the lunar scourge that had removed the seal and freed her. In the East Ocean continent, it had opened the seal guarding the Sunrise City's city lifeline. It seemed that this time was also because of the lunar scourge. However, this realization also caused Ling Chen's joy to freeze over. He couldn't use a teleport scroll, nor could he use a spatial orb. There was only a mysterious door, as well as the fissure where he had fallen from. However, the fissure was nearly 50 meters high in the air. He simply couldn't make it up there. With the spread wings skill, he could float up to 20 meters high, after which he could use Moment of Elegance to cover another 15 meters. However, that was only 35 meters in total, which wouldn't be enough to make it back up to the fissure. As for climbing, that was even less of an option. There was nothing to climb with, and nothing to use as a foothold. Moreover, there were only 2 or 3 minutes left on the Snow Soul light, cast by the Ice Demon Beast. Once the effects ended, he would be quickly frozen, without any way to recover. When that happened, he wouldn't be able to use spread wings, much less climb out. As such, the only way he could leave here was death. When the Azure Dragon Scales effects ran out, he would die from the coldness and would respawn in the Azure Dragon City. However, Ling Chen simply couldn't accept the consequences of dying. Ling Chen tightly frowned, and the massive impending danger made him feel suffocated. Did he really have to die here? He walked to the position right beneath the fissure, and stood where he had originally fallen. Ling Chen looked up towards the fissure in the layer of ice, bitterly thinking of ways to escape. The fissure was quite narrow, but was very long. Ling Chen couldn't see where it extended to, but it was very straight, as if a sharp sword had cut it from the heavens. Ling Chen stood at the bottom as he looked up at a beautiful and thin white line. That was the sky that could be seen outside the fissure. Ling Chen suddenly felt stunned. The ice, the sky, a line. One-line sky. It perfectly coincided with Suer's information. Ling Chen quickly calmed down as his eyes continued to be fixed to the sky. He was now completely certain that Suer's information would never be wrong. In that case, if he wasn't wrong, there should be an orb somewhere around here. Ling Chen felt as if he was in a dream. This was because originally, this fissure didn't exist. It wasn't there yesterday, and it definitely wasn't there when Suer had given him this information. It had only been ripped open just then by the ice demon beast in her fury. Otherwise, standing at the summit of the Godchild peak, one could essentially touch the sky with their hands. How could they see a one-line sky? Right now, the one-line sky was right above his head, and it had only appeared because he had come here. This was simply astounding. The moon god peak and one-line sky caused his faith in Suer to skyrocket, and he was absolutely sure that the orb was here somewhere. However, the question was still how was he going to get back up? As Ling Chen thought, an unfamiliar but warm sensation came from within his heart. Ling Chen found that this sensation came from the pet dimension and checked inside it. What he saw made him delirious with joy. The heavens were aiding him. She had woken up at just the right time. Snow Cherry, come out. As Ling Chen excitedly cried out, a ball of gentle white light appeared at his feet, and a small and cute snow-white fox appeared. After sleeping for nearly 2 months, the nine-tailed snow fox Snow Cherry had finally woken up. Her awakening brought Ling Chen immense joy. It was the first time she had appeared in mount form in this world, and the little fox's eyes were still a bit hazy, her moon god power was completely gone, and she could not shapeshift. Ling Chen's mark was now permanently on her soul, but her memories were unaffected, so she still had her memories from when she was the cherry blossom god representative. The only change was in her memories regarding Ling Chen. All of the disgust and hatred she held towards Ling Chen was gone. All of the memories about him in her mind were all beautiful and wonderful memories. For a noble and mighty moon god representative to become a player's pet would be an unfathomable humiliation, but to her, she felt incredibly thankful and lucky. She was so grateful that she was willing to stay by his side forever. That was how terrifying the soul-stealing curse was. However, Snow Cherry wasn't able to immediately adjust to turning into a small fox after all those years spent as a moon god representative. She hazily sniffed at Ling Chen, wanting to get closer to him. However, she immediately felt the terrifying coldness, and her body was almost frozen. As a moon god representative, she didn't fear the cold at all. However, she currently didn't have even a bit of moon god power protecting her. She only had her own power, which was reduced to the level of a pet's, and was not true mysterious god-grade power. As such, it was difficult for her to endure such a temperature. -12,000-12000. The massive damage figures rising up from Snow Cherry's body shocked Ling Chen. He rejoiced in his decision not to let Xiao Hui out, otherwise he would have been insta-killed by the temperature as soon as he came out. Although Xiao Hui couldn't resist it, Snow Cherry could. This was because she was a mysterious god-grade pet, and was LV-41, as well as had over 50,000 HP. Ling Chen used a Dew of Dawn to stem Snow Cherry's loss of HP as he hurriedly said, "Snow Cherry, enlarge your body and go into your mount form." The soul-stealing curse left Ling Chen's soul's mark on Snow Cherry's soul. Without even speaking, a single thought from Ling Chen was enough to spur Snow Cherry into action. Her body enlarged in a ball of white light as she gave a low, woo, sound, growing from around 15 centimeters to more than 3 meters long and 2 meters tall. It was as if she had grown from a young fox into a gigantic fox. Even the aura she gave off increased by more than 10 times. The small Snow Cherry was cute and lovely, while the mount form Snow Cherry was mighty and awe-inspiring. Her entire body was completely snow white, without a spot of blemish. Her velvety tail was shaped like a flame, and was almost as long as her body, and swished around behind her. Ling Chen's gaze was one full of marvel. He didn't dally, and lightly jumped onto Snow Cherry's back. As a mounting successful system announcement sounded out, Snow Cherry's body, which had been extremely uncomfortable from the freezing temperature, relaxed. The HP loss also stopped, caused her to raise her head and cry out in relief. Mount-type pets would not take any damage when mounted, and would share the same non-stat buffs and debuffs from their rider. The Ice Demon Beast had cast Snow Soul Light on Ling Chen, giving him immunity to the coldness, which was now shared with Snow Cherry as well. Similarly, if Ling Chen had any debuffs, such as sleep, stun or confusion, his mount-type pets would also be affected unless they had immunity to that debuff. However, stat buffs like Ling Chen's Soul Sacrifice wouldn't be shared with his mount-type pets, though movement speed buffs were an exception. He was riding on the East Ocean continent's moon god representative, the cold beauty who he had toyed with hundreds of times. This thought flashed in Ling Chen's mind, causing him to grin as he muttered, "Snow Cherry, let's go up." With the mark on her soul, Ling Chen's order was instantly transmitted to Snow Cherry. In other words, controlling Snow Cherry was almost as easy and efficient as controlling his own body. Before, Ling Chen would only use mounts for traveling, and never for battle. This was because controlling his own body allowed for much more agility than when riding on a mount. This was true for any player and any mount. However, Snow Cherry was an exception. She was a perfect mount. Snow Cherry's snow-white back flashed with a white light as a pair of large and semi-transparent wings extended from her sides. The wings were also snow-white, and seemed almost ethereal when they flapped. However, they were surprisingly adept at flying. As they wind howled, Snow Cherry shot upwards with Ling Chen on her back, and traversed 40 meters in an instant, approaching the layer of mystic ice. Snow Cherry's flying limit was 50 meters, which was enough to take Ling Chen out of this desperate situation. Poof! Ling Chen felt his head bump into something soft, yet tough. He saw the lunar scourge flash with a black light, and the resistance disappeared. Snow Cherry continued to rise up, taking Ling Chen out of the strange space and back into the fissure in the mystic ice. So it was like that. There was a transparent barrier there, and he had only been able to enter because of the lunar scourge. Snow Cherry stopped at the lowest point of the fissure, and Ling Chen looked ahead and behind him. This fissure was around 100 meters long, which wasn't too long nor very short either. There was only 1 minute left on the Snow Soul Light. Ling Chen didn't hesitate as he spurred Snow Cherry quickly forwards. Finding the orb in a short minute wouldn't be too easy, and he had to rely on the lunar scourge's detection abilities. If the orb was at the bottom of the fissure like he expected, he should be able to detect it if he continued to fly on like this. Riding on Snow Cherry, without any buffs, Ling Chen's movement speed was 344. However, in order not to miss the orb, he didn't dare to travel too fast. He continuously looked at the lunar scourge as he rode on. As for the Ice Demon Beast, he had already decided to forget about her. Half a minute later, Ling Chen had already advanced by quite some distance. At this moment, the lunar scourge suddenly lit up with a faint light. That light made Ling Chen completely attentive again, and he quickly stopped Snow Cherry and moved back by a bit. When he stopped, the 7 orbs in the lunar scourge all shone with a faint silver light. It was here. It really was here. The connection between the orbs went both ways. Just as the orbs on the lunar scourge were glowing, the orb nearby was definitely glowing as well. Ling Chen's eyes flickered around, and soon, he saw a faintly flashing silver light in the ice to his left. Ling Chen's frown disappeared and he smiled. He had finally found the orb. The appearance of this orb was far more bizarre than any of the other orbs. It had been sealed under hundreds of meters of mystic ice, and he didn't have Xiao Hui to help him find it. It should have been impossible for him to find it. Even if he knew where it was, it would take him an unimaginable amount of time to dig down to it. Moreover, it was even more impossible given the climate, as well as the ice demon beast that he had to defend against. However, the ice demon beast's enraged attack created a fissure in the ice, and Ling Chen had unluckily fallen in, putting him in the position to obtain this orb. The orb was sealed within the mystic ice, but wasn't too far from the edge of the ice. There was only 20 centimeters separating Ling Chen from it. Ling Chen did not hesitate as he equipped his weapons and activated Soul Sacrifice and Battle Soul Possession. His left hand sent out a four-corner star formation, as his right hand smashed down with a 1,000-kilogram rend. He directly attacked with 2 of his strongest skills in his most powerful state. Even the extremely tough mystic ice couldn't withstand the incredibly domineering attacks coupled with the Scorpio orb's destruction effect. A huge explosion sounded out as ice shards of all sizes flew out, looking like a sea of stars. However, there was a single star that shone with a silver light. It was then that Snow Soul Light's effects ran out. The hellish coldness once again assaulted Ling Chen's body, caused his body to rapidly stiffen. Ling Chen mustered all of his strength and grabbed the orb that shot out amidst the ice shards. The instant the orb entered his hand, the extreme coldness disappeared just as quickly as it had arrived. Instead, an incredibly pleasant feeling spread throughout his body. Upon closer inspection, Ling Chen found that there was also a faint blue light amidst the silver color of the orb. The symbol engraved on it looked like 2 parallel waves. As Ling Chen held it in his hands, he found that his almost frozen hands didn't feel even a bit of cold, and instead felt abnormally pleasant. This feeling spread from his hands to the rest of his body. Aquarius Orb, Type, Energy Orb, Grade, Mysterious God, Attribute, Water, Equipment Requirement, can only be socketed in the Lunar Scourge. Effect, gives affinity to water, affinity with water includes, water element damage dealt is multiplied and has increased range, will not take any water element damage, immunity to all water element debuffs, quickly recovers HP in environments with water, can freely travel through environments with water, etc. Water includes water, rain, snow, ice, fog, etc. The orb in Ling Chen's hand was the Aquarius Orb. Ling Chen looked at this god orb as he inwardly exclaimed, "What a powerful Aquarius Orb!" This orb was the water's beloved, as well as the nemesis of all water users. Ling Chen unsocketed the Wild Sand Orb and replaced it with the Aquarius Orb. Subsequently, a system announcement sounded out, telling him that 8 of the 12 god orbs had been socketed. Gemini, Sagittarius, Cancer, Pisces, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Aquarius. Looking at the 8 glowing orbs, Ling Chen's vision became slightly hazy. Since he had obtained the Lunar Scourge, about half a year had passed. He knew that being able to find 8 orbs within half a year was an astonishing speed. Thinking back to how he had obtained each orb, the word luck played a great role. Moreover, it was heaven-defying luck. For example, the Sagittarius orb had been coincidentally found at the War God's trial grounds and the Cancer orb had been given to him by the Shura's remnant soul. Ling Chen had obtained the Pisces orb when he mistakenly entered the lunar sky hell, and the Libra orb from when he had decided to venture into a hidden space in the East Ocean continent, and the way he obtained the Libra orb was even luckier than those times. It was as if the god of luck had been leading him this entire time. Was it really Xiao Hui? Ling Chen muttered to himself. Plus 12,000, plus 12,000, plus 12,000. The coldness disappeared, and was instead replaced with an incredibly comfortable feeling. Above Ling Chen's head, a green recovery number would appear every second. With the Aquarius orb, not only did Ling Chen gain immunity to the HP loss due to the cold, but he would instead quickly recover HP. Ling Chen stretched out his hand towards the layer of mystic ice in front of him. It was no longer bone-chilling cold, but refreshingly cool. He suddenly thought of something as he reached even further, and watched as his hand passed into the layer of ice. He then withdrew his hand, and found that there was not even a scratch on the ice. Ling Chen happily laughed. He patted Snow Cherry underneath him, and rushed into the mystic ice in front of him. There was no resistance as they entered, as if they were entering into water. Despite being surrounded by the mystic ice, Ling Chen didn't feel any pressure or suffocation. He felt as if he was bathing in cool air. After entering the ice, Ling Chen's direction changed to moving straight up, as if they were a dolphin about to break out of the water. There was a limit to how high Snow Cherry could fly, but because of the Aquarius orb, she was no longer flying within the mystic ice. As such, she could continue to carry Ling Chen to the top. They traveled 100 meters in the blink of an eye, and they burst out of the water like a swordfish. Upon landing on the ice, the first thing Ling Chen saw was the ice demon beast with disbelief written across her face. The ice demon beast was one of the demon beast clan's 10 ancient beasts, and had terrifying mysterious god-grade power. She was an existence that no player could ever hope to defeat. While they were still underground, Ling Chen had been considering how to escape from the ice demon beast. But, facing her now, there was a relaxed smile on his face, with not a hint of fear or worry. "You didn't die," the ice demon beast's expression darkened, and was still furious from before. Ling Chen chuckled as he replied, "How could I die before you, you old granny?" Ling Chen was incredibly grateful to the ice demon beast. If it wasn't for her ripping open a fissure in anger, he wouldn't have been able to find the Aquarius orb. As such, in order to show his gratitude, Ling Chen decided to kill her. After all, the 10 ancient beasts were obstacles standing in his way of reviving Shui Ruo. The ice demon beast coldly laughed, "This is better as well, it saves me the effort going down myself. If you have any tact, give me back the demon jade hook and I'll give you a quick and easy death. Otherwise, I'll seal you in ice forever, without letting you die. Even if you're from another world, you'll become an ice sculpture here." This sort of threat would be able to scare any player into submission, including the Ling Chen from before. After all, players didn't fear death in this world. No matter how many times they died, they would always revive. However, being sealed here forever meant that they wouldn't be able to leave, or even die. Anyone would faint from fear upon hearing such a thing. Ling Chen tilted his head as he condescending said, "Do it then. Come, I'll just stand here, and won't even move. If you can freeze me, let alone giving you the demon jade hook, I'll even call you my grandmother." Ling Chen's behavior greatly surprised the ice demon beast. It was almost as if this human in front of her hand become a different person. However, she immediately gave a cold harumph, as Ling Chen was like a tiny ant to her. An arrogant ant was still an ant. Her gaze became cold as she stretched out her hand and made a grasping motion, "You're looking to die." Ping ping ping. 3 icicles that were 1 meter long appeared above Ling Chen and fell towards him, about to pierce through him. Even a normal attack from the ice demon beast was terrifyingly powerful. As the icicles fell, the ice demon beast could already see Ling Chen being insta-killed. As for the demon jade hook, she would take it from his corpse. However, what she saw completely stupefied her. The instant the 3 icicles touched him, they did not pierce through him or explode, but rather disappeared, as if they had never existed. To a bystander, it would seem as if those 3 icicles were simply illusions. However, 3 green recovery numbers appeared above Ling Chen's head. Plus 79,500, plus 72,141, plus 70,899. Ling Chen didn't move, but he casually looked at the numbers above him. Even he couldn't help but secretly feel shocked. A casual attack from the ice demon beast would have dealt over 200,000 damage to him. A mysterious god-grade beast was indeed terrifyingly powerful. Ah, comfortable, so comfortable. No less than expected from the renowned ice demon beast. That attack was so powerful it was like a refreshing spring breeze. Come, please continue. I'm still waiting for you to seal me here. Ling Chen teased. The ice demon beast's abilities all came from ice, and with the Aquarius orb, no water-related being could threaten Ling Chen in the slightest anymore. Even if the ice demon beast in front of him was not a mysterious god-grade beast, but a Saint Destroyer-grade beast, she would still be nothing in front of him. Not only could she not hurt him, but would instead heal him. Physical attacks? You want a monster specialized in water and ice element attacks to physically fight with you, a physical attack profession? The ice demon beast was completely flabbergasted. The green numbers above her opponents clearly meant that he was restoring HP. She had lived for tens of thousands of years, and had seen many different types of beings. Within the Forgotten Continent, there were very few creatures with powerful water and ice resistances, and those that were completely immune were as rare as phoenix feathers or Qilin horns. There were less than 10 beings that were completely immune to water and ice attacks in the Forgotten Continent, and there was only one that could restore HP from others' water and ice attacks. That was the Sovereign of Water, the Azure Dragon. Only the Azure Dragon had such an ability. Even the Overlord of the Water Domain, the Saint Destroyer Beast Blue Ocean Rage Shark, didn't have such an ability. So how could this human possess this ability? The ice demon beast furiously roared as her body exploded with a blue light. Various powerful ice attacks shot towards Ling Chen's body. The only explanation the ice demon beast could come up with was that this human had some sort of special item that allowed him to temporarily absorb water and ice damage. How could the ice demon beast's attacks be so easy to absorb? An Armageddon of ice descended upon Ling Chen. Countless ice spikes, icicles, ice arrows and other forms of attacks covered the area where Ling Chen stood. Every single one of the attacks accurately pierced into him, turning him into an icy hedgehog. Following that was an icy snowstorm that had the aura of utter chaos and destruction, which swept into Ling Chen. After that was the ice explosions, causing all of the blocks of ice around Ling Chen to burst with massive explosions. Plus 87,912 plus 111,548 plus 24,952 plus 79,412 plus 658,631. Ling Chen remained standing where he had been originally, and didn't move an inch. The sensation of the attacks hitting him was like a spring breeze washing over his body, and even the force behind them couldn't move him. The only thing that brought him discomfort was that the noise from the attacks was too loud. Monstrously large green recovery numbers floated up above his head, making Ling Chen almost want to keep this ice demon beast by his side as a priest. This sort of healing could put even the best priests in the entire continent to shame. Boom! A mountain of ice that was more than 300 meters high savagely smashed towards Ling Chen's body, causing the entire summit to shake. Only then did the ice demon beast stop attacking, and the surroundings gradually settled down. Only the ice demon beast was left standing where she was, and Ling Chen was now under the massive mountain of ice. However, this silence only lasted for 3 seconds. The silhouette of a person sitting on a mount slowly walked out from within the mountain of ice, as if he was taking a stroll. As he walked out, there was no sound from the mountain of ice, nor was there any damage to it. It was still completely undamaged. That's all? Ling Chen grinned as he chuckled. How could a human have such a monstrous and abnormal constitution? Could he have some sort of equipment that greatly suppressed water? However, nothing in the history of the Forgotten Continent could give full immunity to water-related attacks, much less allow the wearer to absorb water damage. No, there was one, but it had been destroyed 10,000 years ago and had never reappeared. Apart from that piece of equipment, there was nothing else. There was only one item in the world that could grant a creature immunity to water damage, which was the Azure Dragon's heart. However, the Azure Dragon's heart was its energy core, and the Azure Dragon would die if it was taken away. Moreover, it could only provide immunity to, not absorption of, water damage. Just what was going on with this human? Could it be? Alright, it's my turn to attack. Ling Chen had acted arrogantly and provoked the Ice Demon Beast to anger it. However, the Ice Demon Beast had instead stood there in shock, her eyes glinting with a strange expression. Ling Chen felt a bit frustrated, and rushed up instead. Snow Cherry soared into the air, lifting up the snow on the ground. Ling Chen activated a moment of elegance, to instantly cover the distance between the Ice Demon Beast and himself, then sent 2 Ling Tian slashes towards her. Humph. Facing Ling Chen's attacks, the Ice Demon Beast wasn't worried at all. Her attacks were all ice-based, and although her physical attack damage was quite weak, her physical defense was extremely strong. It was as if there was an incredibly solid ice wall continuously protecting her body. In her eyes, Ling Chen's attacks wouldn't even be able to break past her defense. Moreover, she was a LV-100 mysterious god-grade beast, while he was a player who was not even LV-50. Just the difference in their levels meant that this person would never be able to even hit her. As such, she didn't even dodge as she raised her hands and counterattacked. As the Ice Demon Beast, how could she deign to dodge a puny player's attack? What a joke! Ling Chen and the Ice Demon Beast simultaneously attacked each other. Ice attacks were useless against Ling Chen, so the Ice Demon Beast could only use her physical attacks. Although her physical attacks were much weaker than her ice attacks, they were still attacks from a mysterious god-grade beast. Even if a tiger didn't have its claws, it would still be able to stomp an ant to death. To Ling Chen, physical attacks from the Ice Demon Beast, who only ever used ice attacks, were completely immaterial. Ling Chen slightly shifted his body, easily dodging her attacks while continuing with his attacks. Just as his weapons were about to reach the Ice Demon Beast, the speed at which they were traveling suddenly increased, and heavily landed on the Ice Demon Beast's abdomen. Seeing this, Ling Chen's mouth curved upwards into a smile. -11,751, -11,740. Arg! The Ice Demon Beast's speaking voice was lovely and gentle, but her cry of pain was like a ghost shrieking. The instant she was hit, she felt as if every muscle and every nerve was crushed and torn, bringing her unimaginable torment. It was as if she was in hell. Moreover, the protective ice armor didn't protect her against his attack at all. The gigantic damage figures and massive pain in her abdomen caused her face to twist uncontrollably. The Ice Demon Beast quickly moved away, and her forehead was covered with sweat. As a mysterious god-grade beast, the mysterious god-grade power greatly suppressed pain, and she hadn't experienced even remote pain in the past 10,000 years. The pain from that attack reached even her bones and soul, causing her body to uncontrollably shake. The Ice Demon Beast shakily breathed as she stared at Ling Chen. Her gaze then moved on to his right wrist as her contracting eyes suddenly shone with a strange light. Ling Chen was simply astounded by how powerful the Lunar Scourge's orbs were. The Aquarius orb caused the incredibly powerful Ice Demon Beast, which was thousands of times stronger than him, to become trash in front of him. In the future, no water element monster or player could ever threaten him. The continents made up 20% of the mystic moon world, while the remaining 80% was water. With the Aquarius orb, the world of water was his to run rampant in. After dealing a crafty blow to the ice demon beast, Ling Chen coldly laughed and prepared to strike again. However, he suddenly saw the change in the ice demon beast's gaze, causing his eyebrows to jump. "No wonder you don't fear ice attacks at all, and can even absorb them." The ice demon beast's voice was full of shock, as well as delight and excitement. As she spoke, her eyes were glued to Ling Chen's right wrist, which was where the lunar scourge was. "Perfect affinity with water made me suspect that it was this, but I didn't dare to believe it. That thing should have been destroyed 10,000 years ago by the Moon God clan. They definitely wouldn't let it remain in this world. However, your attacks could hit me, and could pass through my defense, and brought unimaginable pain to me, which was far greater than what it should have been. Perfect affinity with water, absolute hit, absolute pierce, soul-piercing pain, as well as that light you blinded me with, they all point to that thing. Ling Chen, the lunar scourge has reappeared, and it's on you." The ice demon beast roared. There seemed to be two blue flames burning in her eyes, revealing just how excited she was. After 10,000 years, the lunar scourge's name had been forgotten in the Forgotten Continent. However, the ice demon beast had been around 10,000 years ago, and had experienced the catastrophe brought by the lunar scourge. Although 10,000 years had passed, the ice demon beast did not forget just how terrifying that heaven-defying equipment was at all. Moreover, if the lunar scourge could be combined with the 10 demon jade hooks, they could immediately revive their demon beast clan's demon emperor. What's more, it would make him many times more powerful than he had been before. The lunar scourge was an item of utmost evil and hatred, filled with negative energy. What the demon emperor desired most was boundless negative energy. Crap! Hearing the ice demon beast yell out the lunar scourge's name, Ling Chen's heart beat madly. The lunar scourge was usually disguised by Qi Yu's power. Although he could see its true appearance, other people would only see it as a gold bracelet. However, if the other person was extremely powerful and examined it carefully, they would easily discover its true appearance. However, even if the ice demon beast didn't see the lunar scourge, she had already confirmed that the lunar scourge was on him. A LV-41 player being able to hit a LV-100 mysterious god-grade beast was already extremely abnormal. Adding on the fact that his attack had ignored her defense, as well as caused incredible pain. Only the lunar scourge could achieve such a thing. Having lived for so long, the ice demon beast definitely knew the general abilities of the lunar scourge. All of this caused the ice demon beast to suspect. No, confirm that the lunar scourge was indeed on Ling Chen. Unless the true moon permanently disappears from the sky, the lunar scourge will never be destroyed. It seems that legend was true. Back then, the Moon God clan didn't completely destroy the lunar scourge, otherwise it wouldn't be here today. Ha ha ha, after obtaining the lunar scourge, Lord Demon Emperor will be able to wake up again, and will be 10 times as powerful. When that happens, even the Moon God clan's 3 moon goddesses won't be able to stop my Demon Beast clan. The heavens are helping my Demon Beast clan, ha 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 ha, the Ice Demon Beast wildly laughed. Knowing that the lunar scourge had reappeared was the most pleasant surprise in 10,000 years. Ling Chen deeply frowned as he coldly said, "It's too early for you to be happy. You think you have the ability to take it from me?" Heh, the ice demon beast's eyes narrowed into slits as she replied, "So you admit it. With the lunar scourge, I'm unable to harm you or even restrain you. However, just because I can't doesn't mean other people can't. Look after your lunar scourge and don't let the women from the Moon God clan find out. There'll be people coming to take it from you soon. Don't worry, they won't take too long, ha ha ha." As the ice demon beast loudly laughed, her body flashed with a blue light, and she reappeared 1,000 meters away, then quickly began to run down the Godchild peak. Snow Cherry, hurry and chase after her. As Ling Chen activated Broken Shadow, Snow Cherry's body became a beautiful white blur, chasing towards the disappearing ice demon beast. After finding out that the lunar scourge was still in existence, she would definitely tell the other ancient demon beasts. If that happened, apart from the War Demon Beast and Shadow Demon Beast that had already died, the other 8 ancient demon beasts would hunt him down ruthlessly. Being hunted down by 8 mysterious god-grade beasts. Ling Chen didn't fear the Ice Demon Beast, but there were 7 others. If that happened, he would never have peace. Ling Chen's leg tensed, spurring Snow Cherry to travel at her maximum speed. He definitely couldn't allow the Ice Demon Beast to leave. With Broken Shadow activated, Snow Cherry's speed was astoundingly fast, and she closed in on the Ice Demon Beast like a streak of lightning. The Ice Demon Beast had initially left Ling Chen far behind, so when she heard the howling wind behind her, she broke out into cold sweat. How could such a terrifying speed be possible? What sort of monster was this human who possessed the Lunar Scourge? That overwhelming speed caused even the Ice Demon Beast to be frightened. However, this region was filled with snow, so it was the Ice Demon Beast's domain. She made a prompt decision as she landed into the snow. A blue light flashed, and she was gone. 2 seconds later, Snow Cherry rushed to where the Ice Demon Beast had disappeared. Ling Chen stopped, and looked around while frowning. The surroundings were completely silent, and the world was filled with white snow. However, there was not even a trace of the Ice Demon Beast. It was at this moment Ling Chen remembered that when he had first encountered the Ice Demon Beast, she had suddenly appeared out of thin air. Evidently, she could perfectly conceal herself within the snowy environment. Ling Chen stubbornly refused to give up, and walked around for another 2 hours. However, he simply could not find her. As such, he could only sigh and return to the town near the Fairyland mountain range. That's the good news. However, there's also some bad news, Ling Chen said as he rubbed his forehead, feeling at wit's end. Oh. The Ice Demon Beast was hiding at the top of the Godchild Peak, Ling Chen said in frustration. More than half of the joy in finding the Aquarius Orb had been diminished by the fact that the Lunar Scourge had been exposed. Top of the Godchild Peak. Ice Demon Beast. Despite being part of the Demon Beast clan, the Ice Demon Beast's attribute isn't darkness. As its ice energy became stronger, its darkness energy became purified by the ice energy. 10,000 years ago, its darkness energy was completely purified, turning it into a pure ice-type beast. As such, the Ice Demon Beast can be said to be the most undemon of the demon beasts. The extreme cold, as well as the snow and mystic ice at the summit of the Godchild Peak makes it an ideal environment for the Ice Demon Beast. As such, it's not too surprising that the Ice Demon Beast would be there. With the Aquarius Orb, Little Master can suppress all water creatures. Even if it's 10 times stronger, it won't be able to harm even a hair on Little Master's head, Chiyu said. Indeed, it can't harm me, but the Ice Demon Beast being there isn't the bad news, Ling Chen let out a sigh as he continued to speak. The Lunar Scourge was exposed. Although it can't harm me, that doesn't mean I could stop it. Chiyu immediately fell silent. After a while, she slowly said, that's quite a bad piece of news. Since it left, the first thing it will do is let the other demon beasts know. That's right, Ling Chen replied, the demon beasts of the Demon Beast clan, which have lain dormant for over 10,000 years will definitely be roused into action, with me as their target. I get a headache whenever I think about that. Actually, the situation isn't as bad as Little Master thinks. Firstly, the 10 ancient demon beasts are limited by the Moon God clan, so they cannot move as they please. If they dare to go into human territory, they'll be punished by the Moon God clan. Secondly, the Forgotten Continent is incredibly vast, and even Little Master doesn't know where he will go next. How can they find Little Master? Moreover, with Little Master's escaping abilities, coupled with the spatial orbs that allow you to teleport, what can they do to you? They also won't spread the news about the Lunar Scourge. They definitely won't want the Moon God clan to find out about the Lunar Scourge, because it's their only hope for reviving their clan. Over the past 10,000 years, they've been looking for opportunities to revive the Demon Emperor, so seeing the lunar scourge, their hopes will be greatly raised. Hearing Qi Yu's words, Ling Chen did not feel as worried anymore. He casually thought aloud, I wonder when I'll be powerful enough to not fear even mysterious god-grade beasts. Little Master spent a mere 6 months to find 8 of the lunar scourge's god orbs. This was more than 100 times as fast as I expected. At this rate, in another half a year, you'll have collected all 12 of the god orbs. When that time comes, not only will Little Master be halfway to reviving little sister Shura, Little Master will also become many times more powerful. Perhaps you really will be able to battle with mysterious god-grade existences. Finding 8 god orbs in half a year made Qi Yu secretly astonished. She thought the same thing as Ling Chen, that the god of luck was quietly guiding him. Ling Chen nodded, then opened his messages. A message from Su'er appeared before him. It had come half a month ago. It had taken Ling Chen 2 months to travel from the Fairyland mountain range to the summit of the Godchild peak. During this period of time, he thought that it was likely that Su'er had sent him a message, but he didn't check his messages. He did nothing except climb, and didn't dare to check Su'er's messages. If the information she gave pointed to a place that was easier to reach than the Godchild peak, he wouldn't be able to resist going there. If that happened, he would have lost much of the momentum he had built up, and trying to climb the Godchild peak again would be much harder. White Tiger's Heart. Seeing these 3 words, Ling Chen felt a bit confused. This was the hint as to where the next god orb was. White Tiger's Heart, those 3 words represent a legendary and godly being in the Forgotten Continent. It's the energy core of the guardian beast of the White Tiger City in the west, and contains the White Tiger's strength and life force. Qi Yu explained, this hint points to quite a remarkable thing. Contains the White Tiger's strength and life force? What does it have to do with the lunar scourge's god orbs? Why would the hint point me there? Ling Chen felt a bit confused, and had a feeling that this orb would also be tremendously difficult to obtain. Qi Yu thought for a moment before replying, there's only one possibility that I can think of, the White Tiger mistakenly swallowed that god orb. The lunar scourge's god orbs can't be destroyed, and the energy contained with them can't be digested. As such, it has remained within the White Tiger's body after all this time, and it was probably attracted to the White Tiger's heart's energy, causing it to draw closer. It's possible that they've been stuck together, or even fused into one. A thought suddenly appeared within Ling Chen's mind as he frowned and asked, if it's like that, how do I retrieve the orb? Do I just find the White Tiger and get it to spit it out? Spit it out? Qi Yu laughed, Little Master, your thinking is much too simple. With the White Tiger's power, how could it not know that there was an orb stuck in its body? If it could spit it out, it would have spat it out long ago. The hint this time is the White Tiger's heart, not the White Tiger. In order to retrieve the orb, you'll also need to obtain the White Tiger's heart. Ling Chen's frown deepened. You said that the White Tiger's heart is the source of the White Tiger's strength and life force. In order to obtain the White Tiger's heart, very simple, you just need to kill the White Tiger. That's my guess, but I hope it's wrong, Qi Yu said, trying to comfort Ling Chen. Kill the White Tiger, these 4 words caused Ling Chen to be speechless. Putting aside the matter of whether he was strong enough, could he simply just kill the White Tiger like that? It was the guardian beast of the main city in the west of the Forgotten Continent, the White Tiger City. It was the guardian god of many people's hearts, and if it died, the entire west side of the Forgotten Continent would fall into chaos. The Moon God clan would be immediately alerted. Ling Chen felt a headache coming on, but then laughed at himself. He was thinking too much. With his current strength, he wouldn't be able to scratch the White Tiger, let alone kill it. What a joke. In case you were wondering, I know where the White Tiger has hidden itself, Qi Yu softly said. Ling Chen turned and looked to the west as he spoke in frustration and determination. Looks like we'll have to head to the west no matter what. For the possibility of reviving Shura, let alone the White Tiger. Even if it was the Moon God Palace, he'd charge in. Even if the white tiger was a kind beast and was the humans' guardian god and was worshipped by countless humans, he had to kill it. Ling Chen was still LV-41. He had spent this entire time climbing the Godchild peak, and had not gained any EXP at all. The average player level was now approaching LV-50. Ling Chen opened the player level rankings and found that the top 10 players were all in the 50s, which meant that they had completed their second profession change and were now qualified to enter the royal city. Ling Chen, who had dominated the player level rankings, now had a comparatively pitiful level. In fact, he was even below the average level for battle professions in all of China. Since he had decided to kill the white tiger, the first thing he had to do was greatly increase his strength. The fastest way to do this was to increase his level. At LV-50, players could make their second profession change, which was when they truly became powerful. No matter which profession it was, after completing the second profession change, their overall strength would skyrocket. Ling Chen now had two professions, the War God's profession and the Feng Sect's profession. Both of them were still in their early stages, and would definitely become much more powerful after the second profession change. However, leveling up from LV-41 to LV-50 with the Lunar Scourge's EXP debuff would take him nearly 1 month. The message from Su'er was still open in front of him, and compared to before, it was much shorter. It contained a simple greeting, then the information she had obtained from using the Heaven Secret's power. However, within the text, there were 3 ellipses, showing that there were some things that she wanted to say, but couldn't. Ling Chen thought for a few moments before closing the message and logging off. After returning to the real world, Ling Chen saw Tian lying beside him. Her eyebrows were slightly furrowed, and her lips were slightly parted, as if she was engaging in an intense battle within the game. Ling Chen silently looked at her for a while before looking up at the calendar on the wall. Ling Chen quietly walked into the courtyard and subconsciously walked forwards as he thought, until he reached the swimming pool. He looked at the rippling water as he continued to be lost in his thoughts. After a while, he looked up and spoke, order 2 plane tickets to Beijing for the day after tomorrow, around noon. Also let Guoya, Bingyao and the others know that I'll be going to Beijing the day after tomorrow, and I haven't planned when to leave yet. Beijing? The voice that replied didn't come from Chao Ying or Chao Shi, but from Tian. Tian had just come out from the game, and had heard Ling Chen's voice as she walked into the courtyard. She cried out and hurriedly ran over, "Big brother, why are you going back to Beijing? It was so hard to escape from there, and we have a new home now. It's very dangerous there, so if you go. Seeing Tian's face full of worry, Ling Chen smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm just going there to do something, and I'll be right back once it's done." "What is it? Is it important?" Tian hesitantly asked. Beijing was a place filled with trauma for Tian. It's very important," Ling Chen nodded, then softly added, "I definitely won't make the mistake of regretting something only after losing it. Then take me as well," Tian anxiously said. This was the most important thing to her. Ling Chen laughed, "Of course we're going together. Didn't you hear that I ordered 2 plane tickets? I wouldn't be able to be at peace with you so far away." "Hooray!" Tian cheered, the worry in her heart evaporating. "As long as Big Brother takes me, I'm fine with going anywhere." Each area had their own unique smell. Suheng had the smell of Suheng, Beijing had the smell of Beijing. Ling Chen felt like he had left Beijing for a long time. He found Beijing very foreign and distant even though everything was the same since he left. He never wanted to remember that night in Beijing. He didn't even want to step into Beijing at all. The past 2 years in Beijing were the toughest years for Ling Chen and Ling Shuai. They suffered from the Isrock virus every minute, every second there. Their hard work and dedication didn't bring them any mercy or pity from God. Their hope, the 13223 vaccine, only lasted for a month before the nightmare began. Since then, Ling Chen was full of hate towards Beijing. He hated the Long family in Beijing to his guts. He didn't book the ticket in time, and was surprised when Chao Ying and Chao Shi showed up in a private jet at the center of the Bamboo Sea Wonderland. Chao Ying was in charge of flying the jet with Chao Shi, Ling Chen and Tian on board as well. Driving and flying were one of the compulsory courses in Hell. This obviously included operating different types of flying devices and vehicles. Thus, flying a mini-plane like this was easy for Ling Chen, Chao Ying and Chao Shi. Let's go and find Guiya. They arrived at a very plain neighborhood and Ling Chen cracked open the door on the rooftop. A middle-aged and honest-looking man was standing behind the door. He glanced over at Ling Chen and Chao Ying and then smiled with his eyes wide open. "You've finally arrived. Come in quickly, it is getting cold outside." They walked in and closed the door. After a short silence, the middle-aged man suddenly knelt down in front of Ling Chen and spoke excitingly in a trembling voice, "Master, I am so glad that I am able to see you are fine." 7 people came out quickly from each door and knelt down in the same position and called out, "Master," simultaneously. They didn't speak much, but the passion in their looks revealed how excited they were deep down. Since Ling Chen experienced some near-death incidents and left Beijing, no one had seen him again in real life or online. Every one of them was still deeply concerned even though they knew that he was fine now and had Chao Shi and Chao Ying looking after him 24 hours a day. But now, seeing him fine without any trace of scars had finally made them relieved. Ling Chen became emotional as well when he sensed their emotions. He said quietly, "Get up please, it must have been hard on you all for the past few months. Are all of you recovered now?" Everyone suffered a variety of scars after that fight at the Long family's residence. Some were severely wounded. Even though they were stronger than most people, they were unable to recover in such a short period. After all, there were only a few freaks in the world like Ling Chen who were able to recover so quickly. The middle-aged man wiped his face with his hands. There were 3 scars across his firm face. He quickly replied, "Don't worry, master. We are persistent like the cockroaches and have now recovered. The most we got were merely some scars." To most people, changing one's face was something that would only appear in movies, TV and novels. It no longer existed in real life. But for the Reapers, it was one of their compulsory courses. The ability to transform one's looks completely was a very powerful tool for self-protection. It provided chances to help assassinate someone. Everyone who walked out from the hell with Ling Chen were extraordinary at disguising themselves. As long as they had enough tools, they would be able to transform their faces into a completely different one within a few seconds. And there was no way to tell them apart. This was also why the Long family could not trace them down even when they blocked and searched the whole town. These days, people simply didn't expect such a thing. Ling Chen wiped his face, and smiled again like usual. The people in the room all yelled excitedly and launched forward, knocking Ling Chen down on the ground as they expressed their excitement and joy. They were so excited that they didn't even care whether their noises would get through the soundproofing system installed within their plain neighborhood. They only calmed down and became quiet around noon. They deeply thanked Tian and cast her their full respect, as they knew that it was this little girl who rescued and carried Ling Chen on her thin and weak shoulders that day. It was also her who brightened up Ling Chen's dead spirit and became his life support. "Has the Long family stopped their national search for me?" Ling Chen frowned after hearing Guiya's latest report about Beijing. "Yes, since last week. They have recalled all the members who went on search for you. All related commands and orders all stopped as well. It seems like they knew it was pointless to continue searching for you." Guiya replied. "How delusional it was for them to think that they could find where my master was hidden. They should be glad that they still haven't found us. Otherwise, they would be dead before they even realized how they were killed," said the one behind Guiya. Ling Chen was in deep thought, there was no doubt that the shock and impact he brought upon the Long family was very heavy and enough to make them unsteady. They would surely want Ling Chen to disappear at any cost. They wouldn't let him rest even if they couldn't find him. However, Ling Chen found it hard to understand why they suddenly terminated all of their searches. Could it be that Long Zhengyang was pressured by the other 10 nations and is ready to talk to me now? Ling Chen curled his lip and sneered. Where did Bingyao go? Ling Chen asked. She is usually at the Shao family's place. She said a few months ago that Shao Qi will continue staying in the game for a while. She had to stay there to look after everything, including changing the nutrition extracts, bathing and ensuring her safety there. She rarely returned. Shao Qiufeng and Shao Zhan were relieved at the fact that it was her who was there. About the reason why Shao Qi chose to stay in the game world. Guiya looked at Ling Chen and continued, Master, you know better than all of us. So you mean that Shao Qi is fine still? Ling Chen replied. Yes. Guiya answered with a nod. That is good. Ling Chen was pleased. Shao Qi's life had always been a burden to him, as heavy as a rock on his heart. The fact that Qiyu was able to appear in the real world confirmed that it was possible to revive someone. This made him also start to believe those seemingly impossible things the vermilion bird had once said to him. He looked down and whispered so quietly that only him himself could hear, Qi, you must return safely. Master, the Long family has ruined your life. If it wasn't because back then, Master, you would have been killed. Now they killed our mistress Ling Shui Rua, we must punish them. Don't worry, Master. When we are fully prepared, we will find the right time and gather all of our power to destroy the whole Long family for you, Master. And for the brothers who died on that day. We must take revenge for them. The shortest person in front of Ling Chen yelled out. His fists were tightly gripped together, and his face was sharp and aggressive. Everyone's gaze turned cold and nodded heavily. They gnashed their teeth and swore with vengeance, we must take our own revenge on them. Ling Chen looked over them and sighed, as Guiya has mentioned already, the Long family has increased their defenses by at least 3 times since that last night. This might only be a guess, but there might be even more powerful guards hidden behind. We couldn't hurt them even if we gathered all our power together. I was a bit too rushed that day and dragged all of you down. I promise everyone that there won't be a second time, no matter how much I hate Long family. And everyone, please don't be rash. They blamed Shui Rua's death all on the Long family. After all, it was the Long family's Steel Dragon Corps who attacked them when Shui Rua died. This was the only reason they could find at the moment. Ling Chen's hate towards Long's family was intensified as a result. He hated them so much to an extent that he didn't even know how to take revenge on them. Since he and Tian settled down at the Bamboo Sea Wonderland, Ling Chen spent all his time trying to revive Shui Rua. Neither had he ever mentioned about seeking revenge on the Long family or acted it out. That was because he was afraid that he would lose control once he actually started. Ling Chen stood up and smiled instead, let's not talk about those sad things, we haven't caught up for a while. As the host, I will cook for everyone today. Guiya, can I borrow your kitchen? Wow! Master's cooking for us? Oh my goodness, I must be dreaming. A man said and slobbered everywhere. Since Master met Shui Rua, he has given all his love to her. I have never tasted things Master cooked. That is something I've always dreamed of. Whoa, I can't control myself anymore. Happiness came too suddenly. Wow! Why are we still standing here? Go buy groceries now. Buy as much as you can afford for a rare chance like this. Yes. 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 Suddenly, they all were dismissed and went out together to buy groceries. Ling Chen was laughing loudly at their clumsy look and walked into the kitchen. Tian ran in as well and said, I also want to help. Guiya, Chao Ying and Chao Shi were the only ones left in the dining room. Guiya blankly stared at the kitchen for a while and then whispered, I didn't dare to contact the master directly during this time. I was so scared that he would continue feeling demotivated. Only today did I realize that I worried too much. It seems like Tian, and you were able to replace Shui Ruo's position in his heart. Of course not. Chao Shi and Chao Ying shook their heads at the same time. The girl on the left smiled and said, in fact, it was Master who got over it. Although his mood can get heavy sometimes, he is relaxed most of the time. And you can't fake that kind of joy. It has to be authentic and real. Master is so much stronger than what we imagined him to be. In fact, little did they know that the change in Ling Chen's heart was because he had heard from Qi Yu about reviving Shui Ruo. As such, he firmly believed that Shui Ruo only went into a deep sleep and hadn't left him forever. He would be able to wake her up one day and have her return to his side. A lot of pain in his heart receded because of this. Yes, Master is awesome. Guiya said cheerfully. He turned around and lowered his voice as he suspiciously said to Chao Shi and Chao Ying, looking at how happy and cheerful you guys are, don't tell me that you and Master have, ha ha ha. Chao Ying and Chao Shi looked at each other and smiled. The rare beauty those two girls displayed brightened Guiya's world a little. He spoke absent-mindedly, could it be that Master has finally moved on, for real? He quickly walked forwards and said excitedly, if Master has really re-accepted both of you, then there's no reason why he wouldn't accept my little sister Yao Ying. And, also her good sisters Qian Mo and Bing Yao. I mean, if it was possible. You two please help Yao Ying. They have been yearning him for years. Su Yicheng lost his ability to have children during one of the assassinations in his younger years. Su Hongcheng only had one daughter on the other hand. Thus, the Su family now only had one girl to inherit everything they had. Su Hongcheng treated this only child so gently, but at the same time, was forced to discipline her a little bit stricter than others. After all, their entire family's future depended on her. On the other hand, Su Yicheng spoilt her more than her own father did. No matter how terrible Su Yicheng felt on that day, he would be smiling in no time as long as he could see her again. He even fought with Su Hongcheng a few times just for her. Today was the 16th birthday of the Su family's only daughter, and at the same time, it was also her official engagement date with a handsome young man. This was considered to be one of the biggest events to the Su family. Considering how much love they had for her, her partner would have to be the best man in the whole world or the best out of everyone. No, he had to be the best of the best. The fact that they agreed to make the engagement public when she was 16 showed how much they approved of him. This birthday was considered as the biggest event for the Su family this year. They had started preparing for this very early. They didn't send out many invitations, and most of them were delivered to those rich and powerful families all over China. The place was at their private manor. The Su family didn't have many family members, and it could be said that their numbers were declining. However, the size of their manor was about a few thousand acres. The fact that everywhere looked so elegant and luxurious suggested how wealthy the family was. At night, the Su family's garden had all the lights on and fireworks filling in the sky, welcoming each guest's arrival. I can't believe that Suer's family is that big. Ling Chen stared at the manor and said. The scale of this manor was enough to compete with the size of a normal village. Not many families could have lasted over 300 years in China. Since the Su family was one of them, it's not weird for them to have so much wealth like this, even if all of them only worked in politics instead of business. Chao Ying explained as she pursed up her lips and smiled, the Su family only has Suer. Thus, anyone who can marry their little princess will surely inherit the whole family's assets. Since Master has personally come, will he allow the Su family's princess to fall into someone else's hands? Chao Shi smirked and winked at Ling Chen as she replied. They knew Su heir was the reason why Ling Chen would take the risk of returning to Beijing. However, they were not jealous at all. For girls like them who came from the hell, they had drastically different beliefs and thinking with those girls in modern days. You too, Ling Chen laughed, and his attention then drifted to somewhere else. He seemed to be thinking about something. Today is not only Su heir's 16th birthday, but also her engagement with Xianyuan Shui, the successor to the Xianyuan family. Thus, the Su family will greatly value this event, and will send out many invitations to have many people bear witness to this and give their well wishes. This is also a way to give the Xianyuan family a bit of pressure. After all, their family is flourishing with much power and authority. On the other hand, the Su family only has one daughter, so they are afraid that Su heir would get bullied after joining their family. People who received invitations from the Su family are all rich and powerful families. Without an invitation, there's no way to get in. After all, their safety is the priority. How many invitations did Li Xiaoshui receive? Ling Chen asked. 2, and both of them are in my hands. Chao Ying replied. As they were speaking, they arrived at the front door of the Su family's manor. The guards at the door approached them and asked for their invitations as instructed. He was able to see clearly the two girls standing in front of him under the bright light. Their beauty had stunned him, and his eyes were like magnets drawing towards them. He seemed to have lost his soul, and he forgot what to say or the things he was supposed to do earlier. Their jade-like eyes were clear as fountain water. Their facial lines were impeccably soft and beautiful. Their lips were red as cherries. Their noses were delicate and their jawlines were beautiful. It was beauty with charm that could draw people's souls away. This kind of female beauty was breathtakingly beautiful and showered out the moon and put the flowers to shame. He was sure that he had never seen girls like this in his life before. And now there were two of them standing in front of him. The soft light had accentuated their fairy-like looks from heaven. The two girls were already used to this kind of reaction. But this was just again showing Ling Chen how charming they were, which made them feel a bit happy. Chao Shi hooked her lips and handed over 2 invitations, gently saying to the man, "These are our invitations, big brother. Are we allowed to go in now?" Their soft and beautiful voices had awoken him from being so absent-minded. He realized how terrible he looked, and drooped down his head immediately without any guts to stare into those two girls' eyes and looks. His face had become red. Looking embarrassed, he looked over the invitations in his hands and was shocked by the names he saw. He bowed down, and stuttered as he spoke, "So it's the special guests from the Li family, please go in." He greeted them in an awkward way as he spoke. Chao Shi and Chao Ying both said "thank you" to him at the same time, and the bodyguard behind them followed them into the Su family's manor. The guard didn't come to his senses for a long time. He didn't dare to look back at Chao Shi and Chao Ying. Instead, he touched his forehead and mumbled, "The Li family. Could they be the legendary Li Yunzai's twin adoptive daughters? No wonder why there are so many rich and powerful young masters who fought hard to get them." Su heir's father, Su Hongcheng, greeted every guest himself. Everyone on the list were all bigwigs, so it was important for him to greet them in person as the mayor of Beijing. Su Hongcheng eyed Chao Shi and Chao Ying as they slowly walked closer. His heartbeat sped up when he saw them, even though he had devoted all his attention into politics rather than in women. He even thought that he had lost interests in women, but now those two girls' beauty overwhelmed him. He tried to remain steady as the girls walked closer and greeted him with a smile. "Uncle Su, long time no see. This must be Chao Shi and Chao Ying. It is such a surprise to see you two coming." Su Hongcheng laughed as he softened his look at those two girls. It was about 2 years ago that while traveling to South, he was stunned at those two girls' beauty during his visit to the Li family. He even joked with Li Yunzai, saying that how those two girls' beauty was enough to destroy the peace among the younger ones. Li Yunzhe smiled in silence. It was because that they had already stirred up so many fights among the young men already. Chao Ying smiled and said, "My foster father and Xiao Shui couldn't come because of some business, leaving us two to represent them instead. They wanted us to apologize to you on their behalf. Of course, they didn't forget to let us give Princess Su'er her birthday present, ha ha ha." Su Hongcheng had a hearty burst of laughter and said, "Brother Li is too polite, please, do come in. Yes, if our Su'er could grow up and become like you too, I would be laughing in my dreams." Ha! It was obvious that Su Hongcheng was in a good mood. Normally he looked very serious, but tonight, he was laughing very often. The Li family was indeed the richest family in Beijing, thus the invites had to be sent to them. Normally, he wouldn't expect Li Yunzhe and Li Xiaoshui to arrive in person. The engagement between Princess Su'er and the eldest son of the Xianyuan family did not concern the Li family. It would not be normal if both of the most important members in the Li family showed up to a birthday event that provided them no benefits at all. Our little sister Su'er is as beautiful as lotus and flawless like bright pearls. She will most surely become devastatingly beautiful when she grows up. Better than both of us. By the way, can we bring our bodyguard in? Chao Ying smiled as she turned around and cast a glance at Ling Chen behind her back. Of course. Su Hongcheng casually shot a glance at the bodyguard behind them as he replied. The bodyguard was wearing a black suit. He seemed to be in his 30s or 40s, and had an ordinary look which most people would forget easily within a second. His face was hard as rocks and had eagle-like eyes. If one looked closely, you would see how his eyes were slightly moving, clearly showing how attentive and cautious he was about his surroundings. Su Hongcheng was impressed deep down. No doubt that it was a Li family's bodyguard, as he looked so different to the others. Sneaking bodyguards in was surely not a problem considering the fact those rich and powerful families always had some groups of people as bodyguards following whenever they went out. Only the minority of people like Chao Shi and Chao Ying would bring one bodyguard to the event. Normally, they brought at least 3 or 4, sometimes even more. If they didn't allow those people to take their bodyguards in, they would not feel at ease. In fact, the richer they were and the higher their position was, the more scared they were of dying. Seeing Chao Ying and Chao Shi step gracefully into the hall, Su Hongcheng smiled wryly. He hoped that there won't be any problems allowing those two girls in to meet those young masters.